My first job was at Future Shop. After that, I got like a corporate job. From there, I eventually started something called menupalace.com. It took me 10 years to build that to a business doing like maybe $3 million a year in sales. And then in 2012, in 1 year, we raised $32 million. So that was my first real like understanding of what business really was.
Gary Lipovetsky's journey began with his parents leaving the USSR for Canada, carrying little but determination. Growing up in Toronto, Gary embraced their resilience, funding his education at the University of Western Ontario by selling toys on street corners.
And then in 2012, I had DealFind, which was a competitor to Groupon. In 1 year, we raised $32 million, $100 million valuation on that business after 12 months. So that was my first real like understanding of what business really was.
1999, he co-founded menupalace.com. This grew into dealfind.com, North America's third largest group buying site, which they successfully exited in 2012. Gary didn't stop. He launched bestie.com and co-founded Valeria Inc. with his wife, building a global influencer media company. Gary's success stems from hard work, humility, and partnership. His story is about turning adversity into opportunity, dreaming big, and staying grounded.
If you have the motivation that there's no quitting, then you'll find a way. I believe anybody can achieve anything if they put in the effort. That's it.
Welcome to Success Story. I'm your host, Scott Clary. The Success Story podcast is part of the HubSpot podcast network. HubSpot not only supports the show, but they support entrepreneurs. That's why I'm such a huge fan of HubSpot. And I'm very grateful for HubSpot for supporting the show because they help entrepreneurs. And as a fellow entrepreneur, I know it takes a lot to grow your business, a lot of audience attracting, a lot of sales, a lot of marketing, a lot of lead scoring, a lot of channel management, a lot of content, a lot of long days, late nights, a lot of weekends, a lot of wishing there was an easier way, but there is. With Breeze, this is HubSpot's new collection of AI tools. It's easier than ever for marketers, for entrepreneurs to attract audiences, to increase leads, to score customers, and to close deals fast, which means pretty soon your company will have a lot to celebrate. Visit HubSpot.com/marketers to learn more.
I was telling you about my face. So I did this treatment called Neogen at Center Wellness. And I did it the first time and they put it at what they called, I think, 0.7 setting. It wasn't that bad. And I was red the next day. And now they went and they cranked it up to, instead of 0.7, they cranked it up to 1. So significantly went.
What does it do?
So it's this laser and it apparently like injects plasma or some kind of energy into your skin. And so the owner of the spa, the owner of the wellness center is Layla Sentner. And Layla Sentner is also the owner of the school that our kids go to.
That's down the street.
That's down the street.
Yeah, I know.
From where you live.
Yeah,
that's correct.
So I see the gym that you go to every morning.
Yeah,
it's also down the street.
Yeah, you're going to meet me there on Saturday at 7 a.m. We're going to train. Yeah. You're going to walk over. I walk from my house. You can walk from here.
You could have walked here, actually.
I could have walked here.
It takes like an hour?
An hour?
To walk from your place to ours?
10 minutes.
To walk?
Yeah. 15 maybe. I walk to the gym. It takes me 20 minutes.
Oh, I thought it was like a little bit of a trek.
No, I just took my motorcycle because I needed a little break. I needed to ride my motorcycle. I love my motorcycle. Anyway, so I did this facial thing. And so yesterday my face was a complete mess. Now it's not as bad. But Valeria has me on all kinds of oils and creams and everything just to heal me up.
You've been on a health kick too.
I've been trying, man, because I'm getting old. And if I don't take care of my health, then unfortunately my family will have to take care of me when I'm sick. So at my age, it's not that I'm getting old, but at my age, I have to take that into consideration. And I love my family. I have, as you know, I have 3 sons. I have a young wife. I just don't want to be a burden on them. And I don't want them to see me in bad shape or like sick when I'm in my like 60s, 70s and 80s. I don't want that burden on them because that fucking sucks.
When did you, something that I notice a lot, because there's exited entrepreneurs that come on the show a lot, and they're always trying to figure out like what's next in life and what do I do after I sell my company. And one thing that comes up again and again, and actually I didn't expect Shane to bring it up, but Shane brought it up. A good friend of mine. Oh, you know Yosef?
Maybe.
Yosef, he sold BoxyCharm. He's a good friend from Fort Lauderdale. So he also is like on a massive health kick. They're trying like peptides and they're like red lights on and everything. So it's interesting how all the people I know that have been very successful now at a later stage in life are taking this very, very seriously. But I think that even like, you're not in bad shape when you started this journey, and neither were any of them. But I think that's a big thing that entrepreneurs deal with. They focus all in on their business. and they almost push everything else to the side.
I think you can afford to do that when you're young. I think when you're in your 20s and 30s and probably early 40s, you can afford to do that. But then one day it's like hitting a brick wall. What's going to happen is when you push yourself that hard as an entrepreneur, especially guys who have had exits, which means that they either got extremely lucky or they worked really hard. Most of the times they worked really hard and luck is a component of it. What ends up happening is that they neglect their health to such a degree. There's a lot of alcohol. Sometimes there's drug abuse, not enough sleep, not enough exercise, terrible diets. And so what happens is eventually you just hit a wall and you don't even notice it. And one day it just hits you like a ton of bricks. How old are you?
I'm 34.
Yeah, you're so young. You're super young. When you're super young in the, like, when we're talking about health overall, real problems start happening in like, mid 40s. Like there's apparently like 66 is some age for men where, there's a lot of complications start happening. But if you prepare yourself beforehand, then, the probability goes down.
So if you were going to go back to when you were 25, 30, what would be the things that you wish you had started earlier, like from a health perspective? I mean, we can always talk about like mindset and life lessons, but because I think this is most interesting because I think this is something that there's sort of like circles of content. Like and entrepreneurs always talk about like how to make money, how to raise money, how to sell, how to market, and you'll have like these health influencers, but then there's a lot more crossover. So people care about like Brian Johnson, people care about like Dave Asprey, and like people care about all these health because they realize that they're on this journey. They don't want to be out of shape and broken and overweight and barely able to run up a hill with their kids at 50. So now they're trying to figure out more stuff that they can do. So what are the things that you think people should start to care about? Besides the lifting, running, gym, what are the...
Honestly, man, like in terms of like what to do, like the actual thing to do.
Like what do you think actually makes it?
It's so basic, man. Just don't eat shit. Just eat the right things. Go high protein, cut out gluten, go like cut out processed carbs. Replace processed carbs with vegetables if you can. Maybe a little bit of white rice. It has zero nutritional value, but I mean, if you just want to get that fix, no breads, no nothing like that. Don't eat shit. Don't actually look at what you're eating. Look at what you're ingesting. Super high protein. I'm big into red meat. I think red meat is great. A lot of people, I think the old kind of school of thought was that it's bad for you if there's too much of it. I don't believe that. I can eat steak every day, steak, eggs. So look, it's diet, it's lifestyle. I would say literally zero alcohol. Zero alcohol. I was never a big drinker, but if I could go back, I would just completely say no to it. Even the casual drink, even like the drink to be polite, just complete zero. Just complete zero and just like concentrate on sleep. Like sleep is a huge component of it. I just feel like I'm in decent shape now, but if I would have really taken it as seriously as I've taken it in the last like 6 years, then I would be a beast right now.
I think the biggest issue that I have, because I was never somebody who like swore off alcohol. I never really cared. I used to drink a lot in college and university when you're having fun, and then, you start to drink casually on the weekends.
Yeah.
But now I find I notice, and maybe I didn't notice before because I didn't feel like my day-to-day was such a cognitive stress. Like when I jump into a conversation, if I had a drink before, I notice that I can't pull facts as quick. I notice that I'm not as sharp. I notice that my ideas just aren't as well thought through. But if I get good sleep, no drinking, I can go into conversations with people that have lived in their field for the past 30 years, and I can have a semi-intelligent conversation with them. But I notice a big difference, and it's actually scary when you try and show up as your best self after drinking. It's almost impossible. And if you pay attention to that, it's actually quite scary what it does to you. So I've almost sworn it off.
Look, drinking is one thing, but again, it almost seems trivial and it almost seems like it's common knowledge, but you have to sleep. Like sleep is a huge component of it. Sleep, eating. Look, to me, the things that when I felt, so the biggest shift that I felt in my health when I started doing, it wasn't even lifting weights. It was really two things. It was the combination of cold plunge and sauna. When I started doing that on a daily basis, I felt more alert. I felt better overall. And then the other thing that I did was when I cut out gluten, that had a big shift just in terms of cognition, just overall health, positivity, less stress. I mean, look, we went through pretty stressful period like recently in moving from Canada to America, and that has to do with moving the business, immigration, moving the kids, different school, different country. So there's a lot of complexity in moving. More complexity than I thought there would be, and that was a very stressful time.
I know because I did it with
I know
kids.
You did it. Yeah, you did it at the same. Yeah. So, yeah, so I mean, it's complex, like selling a house there, buying a house here. Like there's a lot of complexity. Just learning about what the hell's going on in America versus in Canada. Like there's a lot of nuances, both culturally, legally, like socially. There's just a lot of things. So yeah, it was a very stressful time, and I felt that stress. But once I started doing sauna and cold plunge on a daily basis, it really shifted. Like it took like maybe a month or two, and then I felt a real shift that I was just calmer, and I don't react to like things that would potentially trigger me, like a challenge at work, right? Something comes up and I don't go into like fight or flight. I'm more calm and even.
Because I think it's because you're resetting your cortisol levels, right? Like your cortisol would spike when you do a cold plunge. I'm not an expert at this stuff, but I've heard this before. So now when you deal with all these semi-stressful things throughout the day, like your baseline has been reset to a degree. So if somebody sends you an email, something stressful is happening, you just don't react the same way. You just feel like it's not as big of a stress, or not.
It's not as big of a deal. It definitely is not as big of a deal as it used to be. So that's a big plus. But just going back to see that? Those are knee pads. Those are like armor in my knees. But it's weird.
Yeah, I know,
right?
the boots are intense too.
Yeah, the boots are pretty crazy. But I have to do it. Because if I fall off that bike, oh man. I think like if you ask me what my biggest fear, I mean, there's sharks. I'm pretty scared of sharks. I don't know why. It's just like you're in their element. It's that.
I think one of my biggest fears, it's not the ocean so much, but it's when you jump into a lake and like something touches your feet and you don't know what it is. That stresses me.
Yeah, that would stress me out too. I'd be less concerned about a lake because I feel like a lake is contained to the immediate wildlife. There's nothing in a lake I feel that could really kill you. Whereas, in the ocean, there's probably 1,000 different animals that could fuck you up.
100%.
We had a boat day with the kids and we stopped in this little, like, they call it a lake, but it's not a lake. It's like part of the ocean, but it's like a little enclave. And my boys wanted to jump in the water. And I said to the boat captain, I said, hey, there's no sharks here. He goes, well, there haven't been any for like a really long time. I said, okay, so are they okay to jump in? Yeah, they can jump in. So for sure there's no sharks. Well, I mean, not for sure. Well, no, right. It's funny. I was at my neighbor's house and he has a house on the water, like on the ocean. I'm at his house. He goes, yeah, like it's really nice living on the water. It's a good thing I don't have small kids anymore. I'm like, why? He goes, oh, because there was an alligator. It came out of the water, or a crocodile. It came out of the water. And, if you have little kids, and Floridians are just so cool that they're like, yeah, you just got to be careful not to leave your kids around outside because the crocodile might come and take them. That's fucked up.
That is fucked up. I think that's actually, outside of the fact that the homes on the water are starting at $10 million and up, the nice ones, I think. So I use that as an excuse.
Not to get a home on the water?
Exactly.
Because the $10 million,
it's the crocodiles.
It's like, I don't want the crocodiles. That makes sense to me.
Gina is scared of someone like a home invader coming in on a ski-doo or something, pulling up behind
on a sea-doo.
On a sea-doo or whatever it is. Yeah.
A sea-doo is on the snow, yeah.
On a sea-doo.
You wouldn't get too far on that one, on the water.
And breaking into your home through the water.
I met a billionaire recently. Who lives in Miami Beach, not too far from here. And he lives on the water and he's like on this row of other billionaires and all their homes are like $50, $80 million and they're all lined up and this and that. And he keeps talking to me, yeah, there's so many like robberies and this and that because it's guarded from the front. He's got his gates and everything. But from the back, yeah, it's like late at night. You can swim up to his house and go out there and rob him, right? And I'm just like, why wouldn't there be a boat in the water with like a security guard? He goes, who's gonna pay for it? I'm like, I don't know, like get together with your other billionaire friends. Like there's 10 of you guys here. Just put a couple of guys in the water and like, don't worry about it. He's like, smart, he said, no one's gonna pay. Can you believe it?
That's how safe people feel, I think, parts of Florida are.
No, that's how cheap billionaires are. That's like, think about it. Like you have so much money. Dude, if I had that kind of money and I had a house on the water, I wouldn't like even bother asking my neighbors. I would just put a dude in a chair on the dock
100%.
and he'd be sitting there all night. And I wouldn't care and I'd pay him whatever it took.
That's so funny. No, I would too.
Maybe that's why they're rich because they don't like they're kind of cheap.
There's probably a couple other reasons, but
it's all luck.
Yeah. By the way, they also don't buy Starbucks every day. That's the other thing.
Oh, that's the key. That's the key to wealth. If you stop buying Starbucks, you'll become a billionaire in 3 days.
Are you going to tell me your story? We have to go into your story.
What story?
Your story, your life. I need your origin story. Yeah, that's a part of it too. So This is what happens. This is what happens when you know the people that you bring onto the podcast.
But I think it's better. I think it's more fun. I mean, it's probably not the usual format of your podcast because guys come on here and be like, listen, this is how it. This is how
A
it.
lot of guys that come on here just wrote a book, and that's it.
I haven't written a book. But I'm talking to a literary agent to get a book written for Valeria.
She should. I'm trying to figure out one right now. I've been trying to figure, for myself. The process is a lot. It's difficult to get an advance or a decent advance. And then after you get an advance, I mean, it doesn't matter who you go with. It could be HarperCollins Leadership. It could be Simon Schuster. It could be Penguin Random. It could be somebody who's not like a household name. But they don't really do anything to sell the book. It's still all on you.
Well, that's why they prioritize people like yourself who has an audience, people like creators, influencers who have audience because they know you're going to sell the book.
But still, like, I mean, there's still a strategy to become Wall Street Journal or New York Times bestseller or get on Amazon bestseller list. So it's not easy. It's just not easy to do. It's a lot of work. So let me add context. When I'm saying it's not easy, because easy is subjective based on the return. Like if it made a lot of money, then it would make a lot of sense for me to put a lot of energy into it. But I don't think it makes a lot of money. So I think that for an author, outside of James Clear, Atomic Habits, Malcolm Gladwell, Seth Godin, whatever, some of these really prolific authors, they make money. But for the average person that writes a book, I don't think you make a lot of money on that process. So you have to have a product on the back end of it, or you're going to use it to get on more stages.
That's what it is.
You have to know why you're doing it. And I don't think that I have a clear reason for me as to why I'm doing it right now, because there's no product on the back end. You have to build an ecosystem around it.
I think it's credibility. So I have a theory about you doing a book.
Okay, let's go. What's the theory?
My theory is if you do a book, first of all, I actually think you will get a deal. I think you will get prepaid, because to my understanding is that the publishers are prioritizing people with audience, because their speculation is that you're gonna sell through whatever you need to sell through to justify the advance. So I don't think you've tried, like,
it's very recent that I'm doing that.
Okay, so I don't think you've had a literary agent actually go and pitch you. So my understanding of the process is they'll put together the literary agent will work with you to put together like a pitch. So you don't have to write the book at first. It's a really brief pitch, and they'll actually pair you with somebody who's experienced at writing these pitches, right? So you write the pitch, the literary agent they go to like between 5 and 7 big publishing houses, and they pitch you. And then they get responses. Sometimes you'll have to meet with them, sometimes not. But between getting a really good pitch written and getting and showing your audience and the engagement of your audience, I actually think you will get a deal. And I think Valeria is going to get a deal. But beyond the financial benefit that you would get from getting a deal, and you and I both know someone who has a deal. I'm not going to say their name, but you and I both know somebody who makes money on an ongoing basis with his book. I actually spoke with him recently, and he has a smaller audience than you, and he got an advance, and it was a decent advance. Furthermore, I just met somebody else with a fraction of the audience that you have. So they have an audience on Instagram in the hundreds of thousands, and they just did a multiple 6-figure book deal paid in advance. So I think you're discounting it. But beyond the financial,
so whether or not I can get the advance, you still have to think about what's the ROI outside of the initial $100,000 you're going to get. That's great.
So the ROI is the credibility. So I think the key word is credibility. The credibility that you will get having a book, having an actual physical manifestation of your knowledge, of your thoughts, of your philosophies. I believe that is the key. And that's probably one of the that's one of the motivating factors that why we would do it for Valeria. I think with Valeria, first of all, I think she has an amazing story to tell. She rarely talks about her origin story, but like she was born in like very difficult situation, and she grew up in a very difficult situation.
I only know a bit of it, but it's interesting.
And it's not, we're not holding it back on purpose. She's just not ready yet. She's not ready to talk about it. So I don't even know if her book would be like biographical in nature or something else. I don't know. She's playing with a few ideas, but just getting back like to you and to Valeria, it's like that book is credibility. People do book tours. You're just looked at differently when you're an author. And the thing is, if you hit like a New York Times bestseller or any bestseller list, it just even boosts it even further. So what's the utility for you? The utility for you is that as much as you have amazing guests, all of a sudden you're an author. Well, now the caliber of your guests go up. And I'm not suggesting that they're low. I'm just saying they'll be even higher. You'll get even more, and then with bigger guests, you get bigger numbers. With bigger numbers, you get a podcast, deals, you get this. So I think it just lifts everything. And I think that if you can do it where even if you don't get a cash advance, even if it's a wash between
the thing I was thinking about, because again, I have spoken to a literary agent, and when I'm talking about recent development, this is like, he was texting me 2 days ago, that he was pitching HarperCollins leadership.
Did they write the pitch for you? Oh, okay. So you already have all that.
Yeah, I want through this. No, but it's still it's good information because I also want to understand. I mean, this is sort of my first exposure to it, so I'm just taking what he's telling me at face value and just running with it. So it's good to know that this is sort of the process. But what was I going to say? Yeah, no, even if I get an advance, that money's going to go right back into the marketing of the book. Because I think that, well, in my mind,
You don't need to market the book. You have a platform.
yeah, I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, the book is going to be right here. You're going to have it right here in all your podcasts.
100%.
Yeah, and everything's going to be here. All your shelves will just be the book. Right now, Tony Robbins is getting free advertising from you.
I got James Clear over there.
Okay, but you need to have, you need to have your book over here.
Yeah, so that's next. But I do want to find a way to market it strategically. So whether or not it's going to be like a podcast tour or
Of course, it's a
something like
podcast tour.
Yeah.
I think it's a big plus. I definitely think you should do it.
Valeria writes it. She comes on to my show, and then we'll talk about her show.
Yeah, all that shit, man. Yeah, of course. That's the way it works. That's what this business is, man. It's this constant like flow, constant movement. Yeah.
But it's a lot of work to write. And then I know people get ghostwriters and whatnot, but I actually want to put some energy and effort into it. Or maybe you just write the first draft and get an editor. Again, I have to figure all this stuff out.
Scott, but what's not a lot of work? Like, I don't know anything anymore that's not a lot of work. You know what's not a lot of work? Like getting money for nothing, like inheriting money. That's not a lot of work. Anything that's worth doing, anything that will result in, whether it's financial success or what other success is there? I don't know. Other kinds of success, fulfillment. Speaking of other kinds of success, this trend that I keep seeing is that people who have had exits, they want notoriety. They want to be famous. They want to become creators. You and I have talked about that.
Yeah, because a lot of people come onto the show.
They come out of the show.
Yeah, it's people that come onto the show. So people that come onto the show, outside of people that I know personally, I'd say there's like three main reasons. I'd say one, they wrote a book.
Yeah.
And two, they had an exit and they want to accomplish the next thing. And the next thing in most people's minds after an exit is notoriety or fame or influence. Or it's people that have listened to the show and they like how I do my interviews. Those would be the three avatars of people that come on. Yeah, they do want fame. It's interesting how people want fame after they have so much money.
But to me, the only logical play for the fame post exit, I guess it depends on the size of the exit. If the exit is such that they can literally do nothing the rest of their lives and just like live off of the interest, then at that point they just want more. They want to accomplish more. They want to stay in the game. And so the only reason I would see that they would want or need fame is to be able to become either like a VC or a PE, like venture capital or private.
You don't even need fame to do that.
You don't, but it helps because it makes first of all, you get deal flow. You get much more deal flow, like way more deal flow. Because then, like when you look at the, Kevin O'Leary's of the world, he gets unlimited deal flow and he can pick and choose the deals he wants. So without that fame, you don't really get that.
Okay, so I agree with you until I found out that Kim Kardashian's private equity firm had trouble raising capital.
Yeah, I know that story very well. Yes.
Which I think is interesting because, okay, so now you have deal flow, but then what's the missing link? So there has to be fame, but there has to be competence too.
There has to be, I know, but there's a difference because Kim herself is not a specialist in this field. Kevin himself is an entrepreneur. He is an he is an investor. So he is already that thing and the audience amplifies it. Entrepreneurs who have built and sold companies, they're already in that world. So the fame will help the fame in that realm will magnify that and will help them get deals. Whereas if you're a Kim Kardashian, if you're an actor or an entertainer of some kind, and you have that fame, that does not make you a good investor.
Of course, which is interesting because I know that she hired an incredible team behind her, but because she is the figurehead for it, I think she's having trouble because people equate the potential success of that private equity firm with her level of competence in the field.
Well, her firm did an investment into Truff, that hot sauce.
Mm-hmm. Which is good. I think it did okay.
I don't know.
I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Why do people want to become famous? You built an entire community around people wanting to build audiences. So what is the average person
You're talking about creator method
looking to achieve?
Yeah.
When they want to become famous?
So there's 3 buckets. I just talked about this with our community. I have weekly calls with them, and I do some one-on-ones with them. So there's 3 buckets. One is a hobbyist, and typically it's a hobbyist who's just independently financially stable. They may have a spouse who's wealthy, or they may come from a wealthy, multi-generational wealthy family. They want a creative outlet, and money is no longer like a currency for them because they have money. Their family has money. They don't need for anything. So for them, it's just like they want to contribute to the world. They want a creative outlet. They want to build a community. It's a pretty virtuous pursuit because they really have no intention to make money. They don't care if they do. If they do the people kind of in this first bucket, if they do, it's a bonus to be able to go show their family, hey, look,
Is this like kind of like the same avatar as somebody who sold a company?
No, because somebody who sold a company went through a real hardship to get that done. I'm talking about like somebody who married well.
And they just want to build an audience.
Yeah, they just want to, it's a hobby. They just want to have a hobby. They don't even have anything to prove. They just want to build a community. They want to have, I see it all the time. Like I see it, people who join us, I don't say it in a negative way. I mean, they're financially sound. They have no need for money, but they want to make a difference in the world. They want to have a voice. They want to help. They have a cause. They have an art that they want to share with the world. So that's kind of one group. A second group are people who want to replace traditional employment income. So somebody who can make, let's say, I don't know, like on a very basic level, let's say an esthetician who would make $60,000 a year wants to make $100,000 a year being a creator, who can set her own hours. I was going to say his or own hours, but I don't know any male estheticians, but she could set her own hours and she could have the independence of being an entrepreneur, being a creator, doing brand deals while creating community and, having the benefits of the experiences that she's going to get, the fame. It's nice. It's pleasant, right? So that's kind of the second, people who are just trying to replace employment income and also and that's more stable than employment income because you don't know when you're going to get fired.
It's so funny that you say that so casually, like in your mind, because you live in this world. You just said creator income, which is really just solopreneurship in my mind. I think being a creator is a solopreneur.
Yes.
You just said that creator income is more steady, more reliable than employment income. But that is such a flip from what most people believe. I mean, like most people believe that they're in their 9 to 5 and they haven't branched out into solopreneurship, creating, trying to monetize what they know, trying to monetize a brand because they feel like.
I can tell you why, but remember that I have to tell you about bucket 3.
Yeah,
because otherwise I'll forget about bucket 3.
Okay, do bucket 3, but then
I'm
just telling you that
first,
yes,
and then we'll
bucket
come
3
back
first.
to bucket 2.
Yes.
So in bucket 3 are the people who want to hit the grand slams. Those are the people who want, they want fame, but they want the money that comes with it. They want to make millions of dollars a year. They want to be celebrities. They want the experiences. They want the clout. They want the respect. They want the fans. They want it all. They want to build generational wealth, becoming a creator or an influencer or a celebrity, whatever you want to call it. So those are the 3 buckets, right? The hobbyist who's already financially sound and they don't need the money, but they want to share their love of whatever with the world. Okay. And that's great. Number 2 are people who want to, replace employment income with, to your point, solopreneurship. And then there's bucket 3, which are people who they want to go for it. They want it all. Right. And it's a lot of the times when I have my, so what we do with Creator Method, we also have consulting clients. So they come to us and we go aside and we do consulting with them. And I start the conversation like, these are the 3 buckets. Which one are you? Tell me which one you are, because the advice that I'm going to be giving you and the processes and the mindset that I'm going to build in you is going to be based on your desired outcome. So your actions need to map to your desired outcome. Otherwise it makes no sense. So if you're in bucket 3, okay, then here's your strategy.
I have a question just between I understand that,
yeah.
But people going into bucket 3, most of them, do you not feel like they should just reevaluate their North Star and actually end up in bucket 2? Do you feel like it's actually viable for most creators to say, I want to build $100 million creator brand?
I believe that anyone can get to bucket 2.
Yes, that's bucket. But the $100 million is bucket 3.
Bucket 3 requires, I want to say talent, but it just requires a lot of sacrifice. It really does. It requires like endless amounts of work, dedication, being able to sacrifice, being able to say, you know what, I love my kids and it hurts my heart every time I have to like be away from them. But in order to achieve what I want to achieve, that I have to do it. And that's like a constant struggle that Valeria has, where it's like Valeria could literally be gone all the time if she said yes to the things that she could say, that, she could potentially say yes to that would drive her career even further. But she has to say no to most things because she doesn't want to be away from the kids. And so it's this constant, Valeria, you should go to this. Me telling her. And she says, no, I want to be at home with the kids. Because at the end of the day, she's still just a mom. She's a normal mom. Not when I say just a mom, I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I mean, she's a mom.
No, that's a priority.
Yeah, she's done that as a priority. And I always have this like debate with her. And I say to her, Valeria, you will do more for our children by continuing to achieve and setting the example for them than you will by sitting home with them. You're not going to, but then she's like, I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss, they're going to be older. I'm going to miss it. And she's right to a certain degree. So it's a matter of finding the balance. But like going back to this whole bucket 3 thing is, I believe people can achieve it, but the amount of sacrifice they need to make is off the charts. But I think bucket 2 is very attainable. You said something about how you thought, I said it casually, how it's like, I said that, creator income is more stable than employment income, because with employment income, you're relying on essentially your one client, right? Your employer. But with creator income, you're essentially, you have multiple sources of revenue, whether it's, brand deals, whether you have a subscription plan, like a subscription that you offer, whether you have a book, whether you have
Podcast.
a podcast. There are a number of ways that, but a podcast is still advertisers, right? It's just a different kind of medium and a different cohort. But yeah, I mean, so like bucket 2, I believe that it is more stable. I believe the income is far more stable, because it just takes a little bit of time. Like, to become an employee, you don't have to build the asset of a personal brand. You don't have to build a community, an audience. So you can go directly from whatever it is you've learned how to do into being an employee. And the distance between knowledge acquisition, right, and employment, it's fairly small. You can get your diploma or degree, if you get a little bit of experience, you can go and monetize that in the form of employment right away, which is great. And I'm not knocking that. But then in order to get the equivalent of employment income, you have to go through this period of time where you're being both an employee, and in the evenings, you're trying to get scale as a creator until you hit that inflection point where you can say, okay, now I can switch over into being a full-time creator. It's that pain that people don't want. And so that's what stops a lot of people. It's that pain. The other thing that stops a lot of people from pursuing this is their own uncertainty. One of the reasons that Valeria succeeded, and I don't like taking credit for my wife's accomplishments, but I'll take credit in this case, because when she started, I told her, you're a star. I told her that you're bucket 3. I hadn't established buckets in my mind yet at the time, but I said to her, you are going to be a household name. You have the ability to do it. You have the talent to do it. And I said to her, I said, your life, documenting your life will be your art. And she calls me on that. Every now and then she reminds me, remember you said that shit to me?
Yeah.
And so,
I like that.
And I said to her, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. But when I saw that first $10,000 check come in, and then I'm weaving, right?
I know you're weaving.
That first $10,000 check came in, that was unexpected. And I can get into that story in a second. But when that first brand deal came in, and it woke me up to what she was doing, and I looked into it, and I was like, listen, if you want to do this as a business, we can do this, and you can go all the way. And I'm here for you, and I'm going to support you, and we're going to build a business. And, I said, or you don't have to. You really don't have to. Because when I met Valeria, it never crossed my mind what she would do for a living. Like I didn't even think about it. Like looking back now, it's probably irresponsible of me. I met a girl. She was amazing. And
when you met her, you'd already had like a ton of career success.
I was
it out of Deal Find by that time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was right. I met her at the same time. I literally, on our first date, I was taking calls with the buyers, the people who bought the equity in that company. Yeah. On our first date. So I had to step away and deal with that. So it was like happening right at the same time. But yeah, like I basically told her, I said, like, you don't have to do this. You don't. Like, you don't. But if you do this, like, I gave her that confidence. And what I'm seeing right now is that a lot of people want this. More people want this now than they did back in 2017 when Valeria started. I mean, it's really exploded. But, I can see that what's holding people back is the fact that they don't have that support. They don't have that person or group of people or peer group telling them, no.
Well, because most people, I mean, like, if we're going to be candid, most people that are looking to be creators cannot just not worry about income. Like, they have to worry about income.
Valeria had that advantage. She didn't have to worry about income. Yeah.
So I think that is a huge factor. So I'm just curious if you could even help a creator set benchmarks in their journey so that when they start to create and they start to see some traction, what should they look for as like a positive KPI that they're on the right track to eventually quit?
So,
because they'll be doing this, from 5 to 9 after their job. They'll be doing it on the weekends. And I think that the biggest question mark that they'll have, like you mentioned this, is, and the biggest pain that they'll have is, I don't know when I should make the jump into full-time creator because I still have to pay rent or my mortgage or feed my family at the end of the month.
Okay, remind me, what's the first question? I want to ask.
The first question is, what markers or KPIs should a creator look for that they're on the right track?
So when they're first starting, their KPI is creating content and posting it. So here's what happens. They go in, they'll do 3 posts, and they'll start analyzing data. Oh, the algorithm didn't like this one, or this didn't perform as well, so I shouldn't do this format. No, none of that. If you haven't started yet, first thing you need to do, the first thing you need to do is you need to establish, what am I interested in? What am I good at? And what is there a demand for? And then you take those 3 things, you figure out what your content buckets are, you do research, you figure out what your formats are going to be, It could be 1 format, it could be 2 or 3 to begin with. You look at other successful creators, and again, once you've done the cross-reference analysis of what you're good at, what you're interested in, and what there's market demand for, you then go, you set up your content plan, you start executing on it. The KPI to look for is the creation of the content. Make 300 posts because you have to do the reps. You have to build a muscle. You have to get confident in front of the camera, whatever format you're doing. If you're doing fashion, you have to be comfortable showing what you're wearing. You have to be comfortable talking. You have to be comfortable if you're making food content, making your food, doing whatever it is you're doing. Really, the achievement is the creation and deployment of the content. And that's what a lot of creators, they don't do. It's like going to university and on day 1, sitting in class after an hour saying, where's my degree? Well, I don't have a degree. You haven't done the work. So that's really what it is. The first thing is like your first several hundred pieces.
So what do they do instead? Because that to me is like, when you're saying that, it makes so much sense because this is what I did with the show.
Yeah.
So now I have a nice little set and we're recording with nice little cameras. This took me 6 years, and about almost now I was looking, we're almost at 700 like published podcasts, some short ones, some interviews, but
so a lot of people, they make the mistake of expecting what you have in a month after making 10 reels. So I've never seen any other industry like that where people are looking at it and saying, I've had creators tell me I've been doing this for 2 weeks. You laugh as somebody who does this yourself. Yeah, but that's to a novice at the beginning who's never done this, that's their expectation because they're looking at your day 5,000 or whatever, day 3,000. Yeah. That's what they're looking at.
Today's episode is brought to you by Tailor Brands. Now, here's a wild stat. 60% of Americans dream about starting their own business, but less than 20% actually take the plunge. Now, why is that? Let's face it, building a business feels overwhelming. But what if I told you there's a way to make it simple? This is where Tailor Brands comes in, your complete business building companion. They've turned the intimidating process of starting a business into something you can actually handle. If you need an LLC, done in minutes. If you're trying to protect your personal assets, they've got you covered. They'll hook you up with everything from legal documents to licenses to permits, even a personalized business plan. Plus, their business coaching program will guide you through your crucial first 100 days. And the best part is you get all the tools you need to build your brand, manage your invoices, handle your bookkeeping, basically everything you need to launch with confidence. And there's an exclusive deal for all Success Story podcast listeners. You get 35% off when you visit tailorbrands.com/podcast35. Don't let your business dreams stay dreams. Get started today with Tailor Brands. I had somebody this morning morning texted me, and he started a podcast. And he's a great interviewer, and he started a podcast. They did a partnership, so he's the one doing the interviewing, and his business partner is the one doing the editing and the thumbnails and the posting and whatnot. And he said, Scott, I need some advice. We've been doing this for about 6 months, and I'm not seeing the traction that I want on YouTube. And my business partner is about to like throw in the towel. And yeah, there's some things that you can tweak, but he's like, well, when I look at Tom Bilyeu or Tim Ferriss or Stephen Bart, sorry, yeah. And I'm like, well, how do I get there? And I'm like, well, there's two things that you have to take into consideration. First of all those people you just mentioned, Stephen Bartlett was worth $200 million when he started his show.
Did he really?
Yeah, because he had a massive Instagram, I think, marketing company called Social Chain. And I think he either sold it or it was doing like over $100 million in revenue. Tim Ferriss has been an angel investor in like Facebook and a whole bunch of other early companies. He's had a ton of capital to burn. And I know Tom Bilyeu sold Quest for over $1 billion. So these are all guys you just referenced that have virtually unlimited resources to spend on growing this show. And also simultaneously, Tom Bilyeu and Tim Ferriss have been doing it for well over 10 years. So they not only have way more capital and resources than you, they also have a time advantage as well.
Right, but the way you're explaining it, it almost makes it seem like it's impossible for somebody without those resources.
The way I'm explaining it is, don't benchmark yourself against people that have had billion-dollar edges then start a podcast. Benchmark yourself against somebody. Actually, the example that I like for personal professional development is Mel Robbins. So Mel did not have a big exit, and she built a coaching, consulting, personal brand and podcast basically from just hard work and putting in reps, which I think is, there's no wrong way to do this, but if you have $1 billion exit, that's not how I would measure success against that person.
I agree, but Valeria's the same way, right? We started from nothing.
Yeah.
Same as you, right? So yeah, and that's the big disconnect, I think, with a lot of creators. To your point,
I can't give him good advice because the good advice is stay in the game longer.
That's the only thing.
And
stay in the game, and it's not only create the content, whether it's in podcasts or kind of more of the short form creators that I work with. It's get better at your craft. So it's stay in the game, put in the reps, put out the content. But you have to be kind of introspective, look at each piece of content, watch your own piece of content, and ask, how can you get better? Join a community like mine, join it, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, do whatever, take the steps you need to do, but constantly always, try to improve. Watching Valeria and I really admire her work ethic. Watching Valeria do this over the years, she's always trying to improve herself. This girl inhales books like 2 a week, where she's always trying to get more information, and she's constantly trying to figure out, what actions can I take to provide more value to the audience, to my audience, to my community? What actions can I take? And so that's the thing. So it's, in addition to putting in the work and making the content and putting it out on the platform, hundreds of pieces of content, whether they're long form or short form, it's also, how do I get better at it? What are the actions I need to take to get better at it? Because if you're just putting out, like, people will come to me like, I've done my 300 posts and I'm not getting any traction. Okay, so then you got to do things to improve your output.
I think that more people have the issue with doing the 300 pieces than doing the 300 pieces and then seeing and testing and looking at data points as to what's working and what's not. I think that after you've done the 300 pieces, it's pretty easy to convince somebody, okay, so if it's not working yet, then why don't we understand retention on your long form YouTube videos, or what's getting retweeted the most, or look for signals, because there's going to be signals after. There's going to be data and signals.
There is, but I've gone away from like sheer data and analytics, which I still am. I'm very keen on data analytics, but I'm more about the qualitative aspect of connecting with audience, right? So now when I look at like a piece of content that Valeria does, I'll look at it. And as opposed to like, I'll look at the retention graphs and click-through rates, like let's say on long form YouTube videos. On short form, I'll look at whatever data is on the insights. But I kind of look at it, I try to look at it more artistically. And I ask myself, did you connect? Like, did you connect? If it's long form, was the conversation interesting? Like, was it interesting? Was it a genuine?
How do you gauge that? Because that's
from your gut. You know how I gauge it?
Yeah.
So all of Valeria's podcasts, here's what I do. when I'm in the gym, I listen to her podcasts on my headphones, right? I don't now. I used to do it when I trained alone, but now I have a trainer, so I don't do it. But at some point, I listen to Valeria's podcast. If I find myself backing out of it, turning it off because it's not interesting to me, then I feel like I'm a pretty good judge, even though I'm not the target demographic of millennial females. But if something keeps me engaged, I think it'll keep a lot of other people engaged.
Have you noticed a correlation between you being able to pay attention to it and the actual?
For me, again, there is a bit of a disconnect because I'm not a millennial female. So there are some topics that I'll turn off early, but it'll still hit, it'll still like over index for Valeria. But most of the time I know, like most of the time I'll listen to it like before I know how it's performed and I'll guess it. Yeah.
Yeah. And you feel like there's certain strategies or topics that are discussed that wouldn't just work in podcast format, but could transcend like short form video, tweets, blogs, newsletters. Like, are there certain things that are sort of universal content rules?
I don't think there's any universal content rules. I think content is based on the individual.
So so for example, like what makes a good podcast for Valeria?
For Valeria, when she stops trying, when she basically just sits and like she has good chemistry and it's just like two women just talking, just having fun. When she's having fun, I can watch the podcast and I can see if she's enjoying herself. If Valeria's enjoying herself, the podcast does better because that energy translates. That's why when you and I started this, I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, I'm casual about it because people want this authenticity. They want to see fun conversation.
That's so fucking scary for a creator because everybody, I mean, this is like probably a left brain, right brain thing. I'm sure some creators are cool just feeling the audience. For me, that's a horrifying thing. Like I want the perfect formula. I want what's the first question I ask, and then how do I open it up, and then and I always prep a first question. And I know that there's other creators out there like me because I'm not the only person that
you're very analytical. You're treating it like a business, which you should. But at the same time, it's like you got to remember that this is an art more than it is a business. The business of this whole thing is things like brand deals, the analysis of the technology, understanding algorithms. That's the business side of it. But it's the art that people buy. It's the art that people want to consume. People don't necessarily want to consume, if we're talking about a podcast episode, this heavily scripted, perfect. They want to connect, right? So it's the product is the artistic value of your content, right? The distribution and monetization, that's the business. But what I'm suggesting is don't bring the business into the content. Leave the business where it needs to be, behind the scenes, running things. And that's why Valeria and I feel we had success and continue, because I'm always telling her, like, stay in the content, stay in that zone, connect with your guests, connect with your audience. Like, let me deal with the shit and some of that stuff, it's not all shit, like, but it's stuff that has to be dealt with, right? It's the mixing of the two that.
But that's such so for somebody who, again, does these interviews where, yeah, it's completely dependent on the relationship and how well you mesh with the person you're interviewing. It's still too ambiguous for somebody to listen to this and to take home and to include into their own content. I think it is too ambiguous of an idea. I think there has to be, because I'll give you an example of how to make it less ambiguous. So a very easy way to make podcasts more real and more authentic is you move them from Zoom and Riverside and virtual to in person.
Sure.
Very, very easy. But I mean, that's a big thing that creates a much deeper conversation. But like, I don't know how to shoot the shit with somebody I've never met before. I mean, Joe Rogan's a conversationalist. He's good at it. But Joe Rogan speaks about every topic under the sun for 3 hours. So I'm trying to, and this is a different kind of format. So does that law of being a creator first and a business person second apply to a format of podcast where I'm trying to deliver the most value to the audience in the most concise period of time? Or should there be some guardrails on it?
Look, I'm not a big fan of guardrails, but maybe the type of content that I'm close to, which was Valeria's content, it's not as clinical, I think, as the content you have, but that you create. But here's the thing. your podcast, you're trying to get out from people the value of how they did it. You're trying to understand the character traits that people have that led them to success, right? But here's the thing, I'm curious to see your opinion on this, to hear your opinion on this. The traits that make entrepreneurs wildly successful, I don't believe is their ability to analyze data. I don't believe it's their ability to be really good at accounting and to know how to deal with lawyers and to know how to deal with, the IRS. Yes, those are all very important things, but it's their ability to motivate people. It's their ability to, it's their charisma, right? And so when you have a conversation with me, if I'm one of those guys who has that kind of charisma, then your audience, like let's say in this episode, for example, they may not be getting, not yet, and we can get into like technical things, but learning about the human being and what it takes and the type of charm and charisma and how to motivate people. The really big, huge entrepreneurs, right? And even the ones who have modest exits, it doesn't matter. It's their personalities that did it. And so when someone's watching this and they're trying to say, if they look at me as a successful person, if they consider me a successful person, then they may take from this as like, maybe it's his charm, maybe it's his charisma, if they feel that that's what they're getting from me. But if you look at guys like, Steve Jobs, he was skilled in many things, but probably his biggest skill was getting on that stage and announcing products. It's getting people excited. It's getting people excited about the future.
I don't disagree with you. I actually think the charisma is a huge part of this, and being genuine and authentic, which, I mean, those are kind of buzzwords that everybody uses now. And you can say you're authentic even if you really aren't. But truly just sort of letting your guard down, yeah, and just having a conversation. I do agree that will create the best content. That'll motivate the most people. I think that I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that it's very hard for people to architect that environment where somebody who they just met, especially in a podcast format, is going to be comfortable being themselves.
Have you ever like hung out with new people where when you meet, like, let's say it's a guy, right? Yeah. You meet a dude, you hang out, and you guys just click everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Right. So do you think that, okay, so when you and I met,
yeah,
you and I had that.
Yeah, I know.
We went out, we met for lunch, we started chatting.
Because there wasn't motives. The motives fuck up everything. So the reason why the podcast is a content, that's what we do here. Okay. So this is really applicable to me. And there's going to be people in the audience that also want to create great podcasts and great interview style podcasts.
By the way, I'm not thinking about the audience.
You should. I always.
No, right now when I'm talking to you.
Oh no, I know.
I ignore the fact that this will be seen by other people.
But so that's yes. But the issue is most people who come on here don't ignore that fact.
Because they have an agenda.
They have an agenda and they have motives because they want to promote something, a course or a book so the best conversations I have actually are with people that don't have an agenda.
Yeah. See, I don't have an agenda. I just want to hang out with you and you do your show. Yeah.
No. So that's something to be said for like how you structure your show and the guests that you bring on and whatnot. Because if you do bring on somebody that has a book launch in 3 months from now, like they will have talking points. Which is it's not an issue. There's still going to be wise and insightful.
There's nothing wrong with it.
But know that it's going to be harder for them to just be super candid and be themselves.
So I want to make a comparison to this. So when I met Valeria, she very politely turned me down. Okay. And I thought that was really nice of her. I thought that, a young, beautiful woman such as Valeria at the time, a lot of women would be far less kind, when turning a man down.
What did she say?
She was just very nice about it. She was just very polite about it. I invited her on a date, and instead of saying, no, I'm not interested, she said, oh, well, you know what? We have a lot of mutual friends. Why don't we all go together? That was her way of saying, like, I'm not romantically interested, and she was just really polite about it. And so at that point, I saw how nice she was about it. And quite honestly, I thought, you know what? She's a great person. She probably knows other women. I was 38 years old and I was thinking, I'll just be friends with her. So here's the point I'm trying to make. I dropped everything. I dropped my agenda of trying to date her. And we were talking through BBM at the time, if you remember BBM. We were chatting through BBM, and it just happened because I completely dropped the agenda and the intention of trying to date her. I dropped all romantic pursuit, and I was just cool and friends with her. My point is that I still got to the objective that I initially had after I dropped it. So I feel that, and I don't want to, I don't know, like, with your podcast, it's like when people come with an agenda, I feel if people dropped the agenda and they just behaved like they would when they're meeting a buddy, because the way you and I are talking right now, it's the same way, bro. If you remember, the same way we talked when we met that first time, like a year and a half ago. And so if now I thought to myself, what would I achieve by being on the show and having people see is just that. It's like, I don't have an agenda, and therefore, you eventually gain favor with people because they're like, this guy doesn't want anything and this guy's just being himself. But so I've just adopted that completely across the board.
Well, if I could only give, I could make people spend 30 minutes in a room with you telling them how to conduct themselves on podcasts before they come on, that would be good. But that's not the reality. So I'll tell you what I do to try and accomplish this.
To try to calm people down and tell them, like,
yeah, let's just
stop pitching. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, it's not easy to get them to calm down right away.
Yeah.
But if you bring up the stuff that they care about in the first 20 minutes, they're like, check. I've gotten, like, the audience knows the name of the book. The audience knows when it's coming out. Now we can just have a conversation.
So I know what you're saying. So it's funny because Valeria had this one guest. I don't want to say her name. People know who she is.
No, I'm never going to say these people's names, but some people are
No, of course not. I'm just saying, like, to your point, Valeria had a guest on the show on her podcast, and she said it was basically like an hour-long pitch about this person's whatever the person was selling. And she was like, it was so bad. And the thing is that what that person did, first of all, the episode. Yeah. It's a prominent person. We're not gonna not publish an episode because, like, try to get out of that, right? And so we published the episode. It completely underperformed, which we knew it would. Oh, cool, whatever. But even worse than that, what that person did was make it so that Valeria has no intention of inviting that person back. Other people who have podcasts will look at that and be like, that person, as all they care about is pitching their stuff. So I'm not going to have them on my podcast. So people are so short-term thinking when they come on a show like yours, where it's like, people don't understand that every time they're in front of an audience, it's their opportunity to build their personal brand. Instead, what they do is they go straight into monetization mode. I want to monetize this opportunity. I want to tell you that I have Creator Method and it costs this much, and you go to creatormethod.com and that's where you enroll. And if you enroll, you get this and this and this and this. But I'm not sitting here doing that because it's like, I would rather take this opportunity to connect with you, to show like who I am as a person and just be normal and just to have a normal conversation, because it's the building blocks. And I can tell you that when people do come onto Creator Method, because Valeria is really the celebrity in this. If I have to, like, think about who's a celebrity, it's me, Valeria, it's Valeria, and God bless her, I'm happy. But what I'm saying, when people come in when they come in and they actually become members and they meet me for the first time on our first group call, they're not sitting there being like, Gary's like, I want him to tell me how to be a creator. They're just so happy because they've now seen me over the years enough times just being normal and being in my element. Anyways, my whole point is that whether you're a creator, whether you're a publisher or an author, if you're coming on a show, that's your opportunity to connect with people. You're never going to sell more by just going in and doing hard pitches, go buy my shit immediately, versus just establishing rapport and just being normal. So the whole point I said with Valeria is that it's when I dropped, and that was the lesson that I got, is like when I dropped that pitch of like, we should date, when I dropped that, and I was just me. I was me without the agenda of trying to make her my girlfriend or my wife. And that was it. And then magic happened, because as soon as that happened, if you equate her to like when someone's trying to sell something here to a buyer, that's it. Your guard is down and you're actually, anyways, I could go on and on. I feel like I'm getting a little, I'm going in circles here, but you get my point.
I think it happens to me a lot. I just see that, and I don't think it's always the person's fault. I think that they get bad advice. I think that PR companies do give a lot of bad advice to people that are trying to put their name out there. I don't think that, I'll give you another example since we're on it. We're going to sort of like, kill some golden calves around PR and personal brand. So when people write a book and their PR company says, you don't want to do any PR before this date, and then between this date and this date, you're going to do 20 podcasts, and then the book's going to launch on the day after you do the 20 podcasts. keep in mind that what's happening is all of your fans that are going to find these podcasts on YouTube are going to listen to one of the 20, because they're not going to listen to 20 of the 20, and they're going to get one of your podcasts at one point in time. Maybe they do go buy the book, but then they're going to forget about you for the next 3 years. And I think that's a stupid way to build buzz around a book. I think what actually makes sense is to be omnipresent, be always putting out a little bit of content. Don't block off all the YouTube videos and all the podcasts that are going to come out into like 1, 2 to 4 week period, and always be just.
Do you know why PR firms suggest this to their clients?
I have no idea.
Really?
I have no idea. Well, I mean,
because when you engage with them, I'll tell you why. Because when you engage with them, let's say I'm an author and I pay a PR company and I give them, let's say, $50,000, right? Modest PR budget to help me promote my book. I give them, let's say, $50K. Okay. I give them $50K. They're like, okay, here's your advice. You're going to do this, all of the stuff that you just described to me. The PR company tells the author, this is what you have to do when you're going on these different shows and podcasts and all this. Because how is the author measuring their success? They're measuring success because they're also short-term thinking, the author, and they're saying, I paid these guys $50,000. They gave me direction. They put me on in here, and here. And what did I get on the back end of it? What did I get immediately on the back end of it? Right? How many books did I sell as a result of following their guidance? So they're paying something, let's say $50,000, and then they expect to sell a certain amount of books as a result. So the PR company is giving them short-term advice to go straight to conversion, to get in front of audiences and try to convert as soon as possible to get them to buy your book. Right? What PR companies, if you engage the PR company and said, my long-term goal is from 3 to 5 years, I want to build a personal brand that anything I do, or almost anything I do, anything applicable that I do, I can present to a large group of loyal people who trust and believe in me. That's a different game. If Valeria right now, after doing this for 8 years, you know what I mean? There's a reason why.
I know.
There's a reason why
I would even
do hundreds of brand deals a year.
Yeah.
It's because the brands understand that if Valeria wears a certain thing, these are people who have been with her for 4, 5, 8 years, right?
Yeah, but I would even make the argument that if I was writing a book and I went on a major podcast once a month for 12 months before the launch of the book, my audience, and I spoke about a different topic on every single podcast, I would tap into 12 unique different audiences, those podcasters' audiences, and I would sell books from each of those 12 podcasters, and I would have a net increase in sales. I would have like more sales doing it over the full year, doing one podcast a month on a different topic, just being a thought leader, than doing 15 podcasts in 1 month. Because again, you're not going to watch 15 podcasts in 1 month, but you could hear me speak about 12 different topics.
I hear what you're saying. Look, I think you have to build the asset, which is the personal brand, not create a sales funnel. If every time you're trying to create a short-term sales funnel to pitch, whether it's a book or a pair of sneakers, when you're creating short-term sales funnels, they're too short-sighted. They're not going to be that profitable because the cost of the media rarely is less than the profit that's achieved from creating that short-term sales funnel. Whereas when you create a long-term brand, whether it's a personal brand or a consumer brand of any kind, whether it's a product or a service, then you're creating, like, look at Louis Vuitton. They don't even need to advertise. Everybody knows them and everybody kind of understands the brand messaging and they understand what they get when they buy it. Or Nike, but look how long they've been doing it. People are, what's happened in society is because of the internet and because of social media, everything is short-term. But I think the true success comes from leveraging the technology that everyone's trying to get short-term success through. They're trying to get short-term success on and leveraging it to create long-term brand value, whether it's personal brand or consumer brand.
Okay, so this is actually a good full circle moment because I think about 45 minutes ago, I asked a question about when should people leave their job and become full-time creators?
People should leave their job and become a full-time creator when they're making enough money to do that. I mean, that's a pretty simple.
So what is that? Do you think that's going to be 3 years? Do you think that's going to be 5 years? Realistically, because I think a lot of people want to create and then they burn out before they have any significant monetization.
It's not a time thing. It's look, if you have the motivation that there's no quitting, then you'll find a way, right? You know, when we moved to the United States, as an example, I just like to burn bridges on my way. I like all the bridges in the back. I like to burn them. When we came here, 3 weeks into it, we said, okay, we're staying. We're going to move to the United States. And then a couple of months after that, I sold the house. Valeria goes, why do you sell the house? What if we go back? I said, there's no going back. When my family left Ukraine, when they left communist Ukraine, and we moved here when I was and we moved to Canada when I was 3 years old, the circumstances were such that there was no way back. There was no way back because you can't go back, because a Jew leaving Ukraine in the 70s can't go back. That's the whole point. And because of that, my family had no choice but to push until they survived, until they thrived. Right? And so if you're asking me the analogy going back to being a creator, if you've put it in your mind that there's no way back, you have to succeed in becoming a creator, then you're going to become a creator. That's it. That's the bottom line. This all comes down to fortitude. It comes down to how badly people want it and what they're willing to sacrifice and how much work they're willing to put into it. I firmly believe that anybody who puts in enough effort will at least become financially stable. The only thing that might limit them, if they're putting in all the work and they're doing all the, they're putting in the effort and they're sacrificing, the only thing might be just their natural talent and their natural ability. But I still believe everybody can develop that.
Yeah, I believe that too.
I believe if you're like a complete dud in front of the camera, you just get to be on the camera more. I'm not like, when I started my podcast, which I do now, not like you, I do it as an amateur. I do it very rarely. I do episodes. It's only when I meet cool people, which, by the way, you're going to be on my podcast. It's when I meet people I like, whereas before I was doing it once a week. To me, I hated getting in front of the camera. And it still makes me nervous when I get in front of the camera.
Why though? Well, you've been doing it for years now.
My podcast?
No, not your podcast. You've been on.
Yeah, and every time I don't like it. But every time I force myself to do it, because then the next time I do it, it's a little easier. And every time it's a little easier, but I still get nervous every time. And that's the thing, is like anybody can develop talent if they just put in the work, just like anything else. I believe everybody is inherently like talented. I believe anybody can achieve anything if they put in the effort. That's it. That's just my belief. And that's why when I'm talking to my kids and they say I can't do something, I always tell them, what is that word? That's a stupid word. Can't? What a dumb word. No, there is no can't. There's only try. You have to keep pushing. Anyways, that's my thing. You wanted to talk about my origin story.
I did.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of like this is like a completely, I don't even know if you'll publish this episode. It's so out of the box.
It's not that out of the box.
Is it not though?
So it like started out of the box, because normally I have this like framework that, listen, so I have a framework that I always test with podcasts, and I try different things, and I learn from people that are sort of, 2 years, 3 years ahead of me. And I bring some of those learnings into my own show. But then I think this is a really great creator lesson. I also, every once in a while, I'll try something completely random and out of the blue and just see how the audience reacts to it. And I think that's important. And I don't even think this is that like left field. It's still an interview style podcast, nerding out about creator economy. This is not so left field, but I'll try different things all the time. And I think that's actually very important. And it won't be like, it's a small test. It'll be a small test. So I've tested doing like some solo episodes. I've tested doing some solo episodes on like productivity and mindset, and then some solo episodes on success stories of really famous entrepreneurs, just me reading kind of like through their life and what they've done. Just testing. But people like overthink tests. They get so blocked into this one kind of content. Yeah. And actually Valeria did this very well. She moved from vlogs to podcasts, and that was a major shift.
It was a major shift, but it was very intentional.
It was very intentional. But I test with like very little emotional commitment to that test, and I just want to see if there's any.
So you know what mistake I see creators make when they're testing new formats?
Yeah.
They'll do it once and they'll say, it didn't work. Done. Finished. Test over. Well, I think that's incorrect, because I'll give you an example. So Valeria, for the longest time on her short form content in Reels, once she started creating Reels, she was doing her fashion. She was doing like she had a handful of formats. And then we started her podcast, and we started taking clips from her podcast and putting them as Reels on her Instagram, and they did really poorly. And so Valeria's response, and our CEO, we have a CEO who runs Valeria Inc., the media company, who manages Valeria's career. Thank God it's not me. But I get in there every now and then with my 2 cents. But when we started putting those clips in, which was like very different than the fashion and the other stuff that Valeria did and continues to do today, they would fail. So if her average video would get 800,000-900,000 views, these were getting 100,000 views, 150,000 views. So, internally people were like, okay, well, it doesn't work. I'm like, no. You have to condition the audience to it. Just because it doesn't work now doesn't mean it's not going to work. You have to keep going. And the reason for that, I insisted that we keep going with it, because I said, Valeria's going to have a successful podcast no matter what. So it doesn't matter. Even if it's failing, that format is failing on her Instagram, I don't care. We have to keep going. You got to keep pushing it through, because to me, her podcast was a non-negotiable. She had to have a podcast. And her and I agreed that she's going to have a podcast. And you have to promote it through short form on social.
I just want to take a quick break and thank the HubSpot Podcast Network for supporting Success Story for the past few years. Now, the HubSpot Podcast Network has other incredible podcasts like My First Million. Now, if you are an entrepreneur or you are ready to turn your entrepreneurial dreams into millions, you have to listen to My First Million. It's a show that is revolutionizing business podcasting. It's hosted by Sam Parr, Sean Purry. This is a HubSpot Podcast Network original. It brings you unfiltered conversations with self-made millionaires who actually tell you how they did it. If you want to learn how Alex Hormozi built his fitness empire, or how Sofia Amoruso turned Nasty Girl into a fashion phenomenon, these aren't just success stories, they're the blueprints for your own journey to the top. Each episode breaks down the exact strategies and hidden opportunities that you can use right now. Don't just dream about your first million, learn how to make it. Listen to My First Million wherever you get your podcasts. But so I have a question, because I also agree that it's with any type of content or any type of format, it's never a will it work, it's sort of like a when will it work. So I do think you have to put in the reps with anything.
Yeah.
But I think that
you have
also
to cut it at some point.
Yeah, but I don't know too many people that have done things for 10 years that the 10-year, yes, you have to iterate and you have to improve and you have to get better at it. But like anybody who's listening to this, anybody who's seen any of your content in your community, if they want to start a podcast and they do it for 10 years, they'll find a way to become one of the biggest podcasts in the world. It's really not that complicated. So, but the question they have to ask themselves is, do you enjoy this format? Like, do you enjoy podcasting? Do you enjoy sitting down with people and chatting with people? Do you enjoy long form video, long form conversations, whatever? Like, do you enjoy it? Fine, great, check, go do it. If you don't, do you enjoy writing? Go on Substack and then write a newsletter every week. Fine, do that for 10 years and you'll be a successful writer. So I'm curious why you were so bullish on podcasting, because you could have just done anything in the world. And
Sure, for me or for Valeria?
For Valeria.
Yeah, for Valeria.
Yeah.
Mine is a hobby.
Yes, I know.
Mine is a hobby.
One day it won't be.
Well, I like mine because it's kind of like a hobby with a purpose, and it's just a very effective business card.
Yeah.
Because there are people that I meet, and I'll meet them once for dinner, like people who potentially that there may be opportunities to explore, and then I'll see them again 2 weeks later, and I see the shit. You see it too. I'm sure you see the complete shift, because now they've gone and consumed my content, and now they know who I am, and now there's there's a rapport, at least from their side, because I'm still trying to get to know them.
It's funny now when I jump on a call when somebody has consumed my content, because they feel like they know you already, even though you haven't met these people before.
Oh, I see it in their eyes. I probably am on 4 or 5 different Zoom calls a day with various people, and I already know as soon as the camera turns on if they've but if they're already on a call with me, they already have. It means they've consumed a lot of Valeria's content and therefore mine. But sorry, you were asking about podcasts.
So the whole point was, whatever type of content you do, you can be successful at it. I'm curious why you wanted Valeria and Valeria wanted Valeria to go into podcast.
I'll tell you why. Because a couple of years ago, before she started the podcast, I initiated it, and I looked at the environment, and I looked at the landscape, and I said to Valeria, I said, listen, you're doing great. The reality, though, even though I think you're the best at this, but the reality is, we were doing vlogs, a lot of short form content, photography. Valeria is very strong on, visuals and aesthetic. And I said to her, listen, a couple of things. There are a lot of beautiful women creating similar content. That's number one. Number two, because I know her as well as I do, I said to her, you're brilliant. And because she really is, like, she's a savant. She's one of these genius people, and I firmly believe that. And I said to her, Valeria, for you not to sit down for you not to create content in a format where people can now see who you are, not just what you look like, in order for you to connect with audience and to take your career to the next level and the next level and the next level, you have to sit down and have long form conversations, whether it's monologues or dialogues or whatever it is, conversations with me, whatever it is. People need to connect with you on a much deeper level. You can't do that with short form alone. That plus the competition from other women who are making aesthetic fashion content or whatever content, I said, it's a must,
And that's why, but vlog could do that.
The vlog's not really sustainable. Family vlogging, it's a difficult animal. You guys tried doing that for a bit, right?
We're dabbling.
Yeah, it's a hard thing because
Well, no, what I'm trying to do, like what I'm really trying to do is like I have my own content, I have my own platform. Gina has her own thing.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do with the vlog is create stuff together. So maybe it's a couples podcast.
Yeah. The vlogging, there was a lot of dynamic elements to the vlog when the kids were coming up, like when they were growing up and getting big and all their cute and funny moments. And it's all still out there, and it's great. Just yesterday I was watching a vlog of when Valeria told our two older boys that they were having another brother. But it's it's tough. Like when I look at guys like Ace Family and some of these other people, like it's just a hard thing to keep going. And I feel it's just, I don't know, it's just like limited. I know the Kardashians did it well because essentially their episodes are vlogs, right? I don't know. It just doesn't. You got to not only kind of from a content format perspective go to where the market is and like where there's market demand, but it has to be genuine to you as well. And just like family vlogging became kind of not genuine, the forced ones.
Well, what I was going to say is I feel like a lot of family vlogs that I've seen, and it's not the type of content I consume. So I mean, there's probably a whole bunch of content out there that I don't watch. But the vlogs that I've watched, I feel like they really push the content to the edge. Like it's almost like they're architecting these situations.
It has to be sensational.
Yeah.
Well, Kardashians is all sensationalism. It has to be sensational. The thing is, that's just not us. We're not those people. I'm not saying anything bad about people who are like theatrical and sensational. That's a different type of business. It's just not. It's just we would have to become actors eventually. And so we just feel like Valeria feels that there's far more value that she can create for audiences and for community by sitting down and having a conversation. She just had this woman. Her name is Sasha. She's a fitness influencer. She's massive in the kind of Spanish speaking world. And she had her on the show and like they had a great talk. And I just don't know that Valeria and I and our kids can deliver that kind of value anymore. But that being said, when we go on, we did a special trip. We rented an RV a few months ago at the beginning of the summer and we hit the road and that was cool. So that's an experience. We just don't want to manufacture them anymore. We just don't want to be like, let's do something fun so we can make a vlog. It's like, if we're doing something fun, then we'll make a vlog.
It, whatever. Yeah.
If we're doing something interesting. But like tomorrow we're going to like our buddy's, 5-year-old's birthday party. Like it's just our life. It's not that. We don't want to do it. But when Valeria went to Paris for Fashion Week, like that's interesting. So that she vlogged. Yeah.
Okay. So I still want to get back to where you came from. Because you still had a really interesting career pre-Valeria Inc.
There was in Austin Powers, the Dr. Evil.
By the way, you haven't done a lot of podcasts. Because I listened to podcasts. You've done your own podcast, but you're on Money Buys Happiness.
Yeah.
I was listening to that one. There haven't been a ton. You should do more.
Yeah, I just, again, like they're not it's not like I'm not on this path of like, hey, come take me on your podcast. When somebody invites me, I say, yeah, okay, I'll come on your podcast. So in Austin Powers, Dr. Evil once said the story of my origin is quite inconsequential. And then he went in and talking about how his father was a womanizer and his wife was a French prostitute with webbed feet. That was just an obscure reference. Did you see the movies? You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. I just thought that was funny.
I remember the first time I watched Austin Powers. I went to a tennis camp when I was a kid, and it was raining one day, and obviously you can't play tennis when it's raining. And we were like a whole bunch of like 8-year-olds, and like the counselors just put on Austin Powers. We watched it, and I think it was like probably really inappropriate for a whole bunch of kids to watch Austin Powers. But that was like the only VHS they had in like the club.
VHS, yeah. I thought Austin Powers, I thought Mike Myers was so brilliant with that whole thing. I thought it was incredible. You know what I did? I did a really, I'm not trying to avoid my origin story. We're going to get to it in a second. I did a super inappropriate thing, and I'm going to admit it. So our 9-year-old Ben, I watched Borat with him. And I think I'm
9 years old? Yeah, that's a little.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get criticized. Someone's going to call the police now. But
yeah, 9's young.
He was howling. He's a very mature 9-year-old. So he gets the adult humor. My other two I wouldn't do it with. Max is too little, and Jake, it would have influenced them in the wrong way. But like I feel I have this bonding thing, and sometimes like Ben and I will do like Borat jokes.
Yeah, but you and Ben are like friends. Like, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, like
We're
father kid, but like it's like
yeah. He's
you're
my
like
dude.
friends.
Yeah, he's my dude. He's my
We like
dude.
chill.
Yeah. Like I'm much more. It's funny because he knows when it's time for me to be like authority dad and friend dad, so he knows the line. But anyways, okay, let's talk about me. Um, yeah. So I mean, I was born in Ukraine. I was born in Kiev. I was born in post World War II Soviet Union in 1973. My parents were both Holocaust survivors, but like they were never in camps, right? They were never in a concentration camp. They had I don't really know my dad's side of the story, like my dad's side of the family, but my mom, her side of the family, they escaped. They crossed the Russian border from Ukraine. They crossed the Russian border, and there's a whole long story there. It's a fascinating story. But
One day you have to write a book too.
uh,
By the way, I like true, like dealing with absolute bullshit coming from a country that is, I mean, like post World War II, Soviet Union was not like a great spot either. And then coming to a new country, sort of burning the bridges, starting a new life. I think those are fabulous fucking stories.
yeah, but you know what? I mean, it's my parents' story. I'm more of an observer there because as a child, I indirectly grew up with the stress of that situation, but I wasn't living that situation because I was a kid, right? And I was shielded by my parents. But yeah, I mean, look, we came to Canada in 1976. I was 3 years old. My parents were in their mid 30s. They had left the only thing they ever knew. And it's not like they left the country after traveling the world and being worldly. Like they were like in a prison. Like the Soviet Union at the time, it was the Iron Curtain. They had never left the country, and they went straight from post-World War II Ukraine. And just understand, post-World War II Ukraine was probably the most anti-Semitic place on earth, because what happened was after World War II, people don't understand, but millions of Soviets died as well. So it wasn't just Jews who were killed in the Holocaust, it was Soviets. And so people like the Soviets, because it was all Soviets, so the Ukrainians were essentially Soviets. That's why I only speak Russian. I don't speak Ukrainian, because my parents only spoke to me in Russian, because in their lifetime, it was all Soviet Union and everything was Russian, not Ukrainian. And so the way that it was explained to me is that when they came back after the Holocaust, and they came back in the 40s, 46, 47, 47, I think, maybe 48. When they came back to their homes in Ukraine, when their families came back into Kiev, they were hated by the non-Jews, because the non-Jews blamed them for Hitler attacking and decimating the whole country and killing all their families too. So, and it was like, when we talk about anti-Semitism, it's like it was truly like institutional, meaning the institutions would tell like my mom, hey, thanks for applying to go to university, but you're a Jew, so we're not taking you. Like it was just straight up, like, and it documented, Jew, no, yeah. Jew, right. So, and that's what it was, and that's just a part of history, right? And that's why a lot of people went to Israel, and we know kind of what's going on there now. That's a whole other conversation. But so we ended up going to Canada, and we ended up in Canada because my father didn't. I don't know. He had this thing about the United States, and he didn't want to go, and he didn't want to go to Israel, which was, we had left the Soviet Union under the premise that like the Jews can go to Israel. We don't want you here, but you can go to Israel. And so we were in Rome for 6 months, and during that period of time, my dad did the paperwork and he got us into Canada. So yeah, I mean, my origin, like, yeah, so I grew up in a household where it was always this like, my parents came, they didn't speak English, they had no money, they had no contacts. And so, yeah, it was rough, but like, I'm not sitting here like saying that this was a unique situation, because millions of people went through this. We're not the only ones, right? This was a very common, and it still is a common thing with migrants who are fleeing kind of tough situations and coming to Canada or the U.S.
You still adopted like a no going back, burn the bridges attitude from them.
Well, I was a kid. They just had
yeah,
no
but
choice.
I think that's yes, I know you were a kid, but I think that some of your attitude came from their ability to just leave everything behind.
Maybe. I'm just not a big believer in plan Bs. I think plan Bs are just like, plan Bs are
but that
the road
is
to failure.
A personality trait.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't experience growing up. I never experienced this growing up. No plan B. I had to architect in my head the ability to not have 10 plan Bs and just try and go in on the thing that I'm, plan A. That is not something that I grew up with. I grew up with like the most risk adverse parents ever.
Right. But your parents were also like, they're Canadian, they're multi-generation Canadian, but that's
We were like the Mayflower of Canadians. We go back.
Yeah, but they're the product of that society. Canada, there's a saying in Russian that translates to "stable like in Canada." Really, literally.
I have no doubt. They're saying in Russian for everything.
No, but I'll say it in Russian. "Стабильно, как в Канаде." It's literally like that's the saying, and it's stable like in Canada. So I understand that. But no, for us it was different because we were in a group of immigrants who everybody was scared coming to Canada. The first city we lived in Canada was Calgary, Alberta. And I got there when I was 3 and we left there when I was 11. And it was like, my mom told me it was like landing on the moon.
Yeah.
It was so different. Again, no money, no contacts, no English, under a social program. My mother and father, they would clean offices during the day. In the mornings, they would drop me off into like the government daycare. My mom told me I would like cry my eyes out. And then, at the end of the day, she would scoop me up when I was 3 years old. Anyways, so yeah, kind of just growing up.
Were they ever entrepreneurial, your parents?
Yes and no. They're failed entrepreneurs. They never made any kind of meaningful headway, unfortunately. I believe that the trauma of their kind of Soviet upbringing and that transition from the Soviet Union to Canada, it was too much for them. So they never really, and then, my parents got divorced when I was in my early 20s. I don't talk about it a lot, but I had a challenging like early life. I did. And it's not something I talk about because I just don't want anybody's sympathy. And there's like a lot of stories, but it was difficult. One of the things was we were just like in this constant, my dad was like constantly, we're going to be in the streets. We're going to be in the streets. We're going to be in the streets. So I kind of grew up with that thing of like, we're always on the edge of disaster, So growing up with that, yeah, like it kind of messes with your mind as a kid. And then, the other thing is like culturally, I grew up as a Canadian kid. So kind of, westernized, being raised by very like, like communist bloc parents, right? So it was always this polarity in my life, but between the two. But fortunately or unfortunately,
whatever that polarity was, it created like a perfect environment. Like you are super entrepreneurial. So I don't know how you were the output of this or what the.
But it's by necessity, Scott. It's by necessity.
No, it's not by necessity. What do you mean? You could have gotten a job.
I did. I got fired.
You could have gotten another.
They fired me again. These fuckers just kept firing me because I was just a terrible employee. I just sucked at it. I sucked at it until I got into my first kind of entrepreneurial thing. Well, my very first entrepreneurial thing was I sold stuffed animals on street corners. Yeah. Yeah. So what would happen is a friend of mine when I was in so my first year of college, after my first year of university, I was 19. And I had a buddy of mine who, what he would do is he would go to Canada's Wonderland. Remember Canada's Wonderland is like a theme to the Americans. It's like a theme park. It's like a Six Flags kind of situation. And he would win stuffed animals. Like he would win them. He would get really good at the games and he would win them. And then he'd go outside and set them up in the parking lot and sell them.
That's so funny.
And so then he eventually got into it where he would win so many of them that he would hire his friends to sit on the corners selling these animals. So I was one of those friends and he would pay me like a salary, he'd pay me like a little commission. And during the summer of my first year after college, part of my time I would spend pumping gas for $5 an hour back then, Canadian, maybe less. And then the other times I would be on the street corners on the weekends. The weekends were the big times for selling stuffed animals. And I would work for my friend. And the summer after that, I decided to go off on my own. I didn't want to compete with him because I felt bad, he's my friend. I didn't want to compete with him and set up like in the same city as him. So I did it in London, Ontario, where I was going to school. But instead of winning the stuffed animals, I looked at the tags. I went to Canada's Wonderland and I looked at the tag of the stuffed animal and I saw who the manufacturer was. So I called the manufacturer. I said, hey, I want to buy some stuffed animals. And I'm a 19-year-old kid. And they would sell to like the Conklins of the world and all these big, and you would have like 18-wheeler trucks pull up to the back of these warehouses in Toronto and load up with stuffed animals, right? And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, yeah, I want to buy some stuffed animals. So yeah, I just bought stuffed animals. I got like this crappy little van, van for $500. My dad loaned me the money.
I love these like super scrappy entrepreneur stories. This is actually very fun.
What's super scrappy? I was making $10K a month.
You're making $10K a month?
And that's after the first summer after I worked for my friend.
Was that gas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 10K Canadian a month.
These many
Cash. Cash. back in like the early 90s. Yeah.
It's crazy. So you're pulling 120 on your first.
No, but I only did it in the summers.
Okay.
But I was the man. Like I was the guy like in college.
Fast do you forget that there's winters in the rest of the world the second you move?
Right. No, so what happened was I would buy stuffed animals. I haven't talked about this shit in years. I would buy stuffed animals from the same people who would supply all the theme parks all over actually Canada and the United States. These were like manufacturers. There were 2 manufacturers. And at first they didn't want to give me an account. And then I drove my van to the back and there was a dude there like, hey, what's up? He's like, what's up? I'm like, hey, can I buy some stuffed animals? And he's like, all right, fuck it. And so he just sold me stuffed animals. Did he tell anybody else that he was selling the stuffed animals? That's none of my business.
Fucking amazing.
But I had a van, and when I told you I loaded up that van, there was no more air in the van. I had so many stuffed animals. Each stuffed animal was in its own little plastic bag.
Yeah.
And each stuffed animal, if you can imagine the back of a cargo van, right? And it was just air. There was no air. It was just stuffed animals. And then what I would do is I would drive back to London because the suppliers are in Toronto. I would drive back to London, Ontario, and then I would just, because it was a 1-year lease on all of the student housing over there, and I wasn't going to pay the 2 months for the student housing, like for my apartment in London, and then go back to Toronto, because in Toronto, all my friends came back to Toronto. And so that's where everybody was socializing. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to stay in London. So I stayed in London. I was a kid in my early 20s, and that was my time to party in the summers. But instead of partying in the summers, I didn't take any money from my parents to go to school. It was all stuffed animal money and OSAP, rented student loans.
Yeah.
And so I piled the stuffed animals. I went back to London. I set up on street corners, and I would just sell stuffed animals every day.
Stuffed animal arbitrage.
Oh, dude, I would buy but that's where I developed like sales skills. So for example, I had
who buys a stuffed animal on the street corner?
Dude, I had all kinds of clients. So what would happen is if you can imagine, it wasn't like I just opened the back of the van and there were stuffed animals. I took them all out. And so if you can imagine a full van full of stuffed animals, and then I just laid them all out on the plastic bag so they don't get dirty. But it was like, I can't even describe to you how big it was. It looked like a toy store. It looked like Barney vomited all over the fucking, and I did it with gas stations. So I would go to the gas station and I'd go to the gas station attendant, right? Just some random guy at the gas station, some minimum wage guy at the gas station. I'm like, hey, I'm going to set up the thing. He goes, no, the owner, no, you can't do it. I'm like, you have any kids? He goes, yeah, I have a kid. I go, yeah, boys, girls, we got. He goes, I have a boy. And they took out like the little gorilla, whatever. I'm like, why don't you give this to your kid? He's like, okay. And then he just left me alone and I just set up. I just set up at the gas station. So it was at intersections. So I had traffic coming in from all sides and people would stop, and it was always an impulse buy because they would see it. So I had the advertising and the marketing was done by the display. They would pull in, I had parking, they would come out and they would negotiate with me. I learned my initial negotiation skills there when somebody would say, how much for this teddy bear? And I'd say, it's $30. Teddy bear's $30. He goes, give it to me for 20. I go, look, I'm not going to do it for 20. I go, but for $30, why don't you pay me 30? And I'm going to give you this other teddy bear here. This teddy bear I sell for 10. But meanwhile, that teddy bear cost me $1. So instead of knocking it down to $20, I basically added another teddy bear that cost me $1. So in reality, I got I only gave him $1 off. Do you know what I mean? And I put more product in his hand. And so now he would send his friends and he would come back because he'd come with more animals. So I learned kind of basic negotiations, honestly, like marketing, merchandising,
But this is like the most important skill for an entrepreneur to figure out.
I mean, there's a lot of important skills.
I know, but I think this is one of the most important.
But the negotiations were the most fun part. Those were the best. I'll tell you why. Dude comes in, he's in his BMW, he's looking at me like I'm poor. And I get it. Cool. I'm the guy on the street corner selling stuffed animals. He's coming in, he's a young kid. He's like in his early 20s. He's got his girlfriend with him. They come out of his BMW. And I already look at this kid. It's like, okay, he lives at home. It's his dad's car, or he leases it and all his money goes to the car because he's not paying rent. Like, I already sized the guy up as he's walking over. I see his girlfriend. She's looking around and she's like, oh my God, I love this one. And he comes, he goes, hey, give me a deal. I'm like, nope. And so I already I developed that kind of instinct, and I understood, I just understood negotiations. I understood kind of what motivates clients. I understood how to create value. right? I understood how to create value in, if somebody comes and like they have a child, and I'd be like, oh, okay, like what are you into? Like I understood how to like I learned how to qualify a customer and then provide them with the best value possible in order to satisfy them and for them to leave that street corner after buying an animal from me and send their friends over. So then what would happen is people would keep coming back and saying, oh, my friend was just here and he bought this and this monkey. The monkey? I go, like, yeah, do you have any more of those monkeys? I'm like, yeah, I got more. So, and that's where you start learning those skills. So yeah, that's kind of where I picked it up from.
Do you think that entrepreneurship is something you're born with?
I believe anything can be developed. I became an entrepreneur out of necessity because pumping gas at $5 an hour wasn't an option.
I just want to take a second and thank FreshBooks for supporting today's episode. Now, there are 3 numbers that you have to know. 30 million, 60 billion, 192 hours. What do these mean? Over 30 million people have used FreshBooks. Over 60 million invoices have been paid through FreshBooks, and over 192 hours have been saved annually using FreshBooks all-in-one accounting. If you're an entrepreneur, a freelancer, a solopreneur, if you are tired of chasing payments and drowning in receipts, FreshBooks is here to make your life easier. It's the all-in-one accounting solution that helps you manage everything from creating professional estimates and proposals to tracking time and automatically billing clients. If you need to capture expenses on the go, just snap a photo. With over 100 business integrations, FreshBooks fits perfectly into your workflow, and when tax time rolls around, everything is organized and ready for your accountant, or you can rely on FreshBooks' expert bookkeeping services. Over 30 million people have used FreshBooks, processing over $60 billion in invoices. And like I said, they're saving 192 hours annually. It's user-friendly, seamless, and offers award-winning customer service. Stop wasting your time on manual accounting. Start your 30-day free trial at FreshBooks.com. No credit card required. FreshBooks is offering 60% off for 6 months. This offer is valid from January 7th till March 4th. Make sure to head over to FreshBooks.com/pricing-offer. They will always have some great promotions for listeners of Success Story. That is FreshBooks.com/pricing-offer. So many more people would apply to 1,000 jobs than go find some stuffed animals.
You just got me thinking about that kind of, that turning point, that inflection point in my life when I said, okay, I'm going to go sell these stuffed animals. I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I never did back then. It never crossed my mind. I don't even think I consider myself an entrepreneur now. People ask me, what do you do? I don't even know what I do. The reality is when people ask me, what do you do? The real answer is whatever it takes. And so I believe that my entrepreneurial journey, me as an entrepreneur, it's out of necessity. It's born out of necessity, and it's born out of it's constantly wanting more. It's wanting more. It's this constant, I have a constant need for progress and improvement. And so when I look back, because you've got me kind of, reflecting, when I think back as to what made me an entrepreneur, it's this constant need for progress and improvement. That's it. That's what it comes down to for me. Do I want to be super rich? I mean, I like money, but now that I have a couple of bucks, it's not what makes me happy. It's not. It truly isn't. And I truly understand that. I don't get bent out of shape like I used to about not closing a deal. I still try as like hell. I still push everywhere I can. And if I can save a deal, I'll save a deal. But I don't get bent out of shape if it doesn't happen anymore. I'm okay with it. Because when I assess what truly makes me happy, and I've come to that point of self-realization, it's not the amount of money in my bank account. It's not my stuff.
It's such a hard idea to put in someone's head when they're just starting out, though. But it's the right idea.
I don't know, man. I just think things come when you're not trying to get it. It's like the strangest thing. It's the same way when like Valeria turned me down and I stopped trying to get her, I got her. You know what I mean? Same thing. Like I'd love it if 1 million people come in off of this podcast and sign up to my Creator Method course, but I'm okay if they don't. Like it's, you know what I mean? Like it's not my intention.
But then you get into the cliches like you're supposed to enjoy the journey and like it, but it is true.
You can enjoy the journey. I just enjoy the shit that matters. Sure, I can enjoy the journey. Cool. Yeah, I enjoy the journey, but I enjoy the shit that matters. I enjoy watching Borat with Ben. Like I enjoyed that shit. If you asked me like, what's your most memorable thing? It wasn't the X amount of millions of dollars we made in the last whatever. It's the fucking like sitting and watching Borat with Ben and getting laughs with him and like, doing shit with them. I don't know, man. Or like my time with my wife. Like I truly love my wife. Like, and I'm truly still in love with my wife. We've been together 13 years. Like to me, she's still my girlfriend. Truly, that's how I feel. Like I don't feel I'm going home to my wife. I don't even look at her as my wife. Yeah, just going back to my origin story. Sorry, I started on the stuffed animals, and then yeah, like so after that, after the stuffed animals, I ended up like I finished the university. I have a degree in geology.
Do you actually?
I do.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
That is the most surprising thing I think I'll ever learn about you, that you have a degree in geology.
I do. I have a degree. I have a Bachelor of Science in Geology. Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that you wanted to do it for your degree.
You know what? No, I didn't. I mean, my first motivation to go to university was because two things. I wanted to get out of my house because it wasn't the best situation. And everybody was going to university at the time, and I didn't want to be like the loser who didn't go to university. So those are my two motivations. And I got accepted to, and I was a terrible shit student. And by the way, in my final year of university, I had failed a course that would make it so I couldn't get my degree. Yeah. And it was a 3-year degree that it took me 4 years to get.
I was a 4-year degrry that took me 5 years to get, so that's fine.
Okay. There you go. There you go. So, but not only did my 3-year degree take me 4 years to get, I had failed a course that basically that's it. You can't get your degree. So what did I do? I went to I had a friend, this girl Rosa, lovely girl. She's great. She still lives in London. I knew that her friend was the daughter of the dean of geology. Like the geology school had like a dean, had a head dude, So I'm like, hey, listen, can you tell her I want to talk to her dad? Like, would you mind?
A meeting.
I leveraged my network, And so Rose was like, okay, whatever. She got me a meeting. I came in there. I'm like, hey, what's up? I go, look, here's the situation. Like, you just got to give me a passing mark on that one course so I can get my degree. He goes, but you failed. And I'm like, I don't have any more money. I can't come back here for another year. Like, this is a 3-year degree in 4 years. Like, I'm not exactly like a star student. Like, I've already, I'm up to my eyeballs in debt. You got to help me out, and you got to just give me like boost that one grade, give me a passing grade on that one class, and just get me like literally past the goalpost so I can just get my degree and get the fuck out of here. And he was like, he liked me, like I spent some time with him. I really told him, I sold him, and he passed me. And I remember, dude, I haven't talked about this shit in years. I remember I got a job after that. My first job was at Future Shop. Remember Future Shop?
Yeah.
To those who don't know, it's like a Circuit City. Circuit City actually ended up buying them. And
well, no, I mean it's like a Best Buy.
Sorry, like a Best Buy.
Yeah. Still exists. Yeah.
Future Shop doesn't exist.
No, Best Buy that.
Best Buy bought them, and yeah. And I remember, honestly, one of the proudest moments of my life to date, when I after I worked at Future Shop for a while, and I would see all these that was the first time I touched the computer. So I was selling computers at Future Shop to people, and I didn't know, because in university all my shit was written by hand. I'm a little older than you. I know. Right? We didn't have computers in university. So the first time I touched the computer was when I was selling them for the first time at Future Shop, and they trained me on what the CPU is and the RAM and all this shit. And so I was selling them, and after that I got like a corporate job, which they eventually fired me from after like less than a year. I was selling like computer hardware to an insurance company, and they gave me a laptop. And to me, that was more satisfying than when like I bought a Rolls Royce after my exit, and I got this laptop, and I was so proud of my laptop. I got into my 1986 Chevy, which was half blue and half rust. And I drove to London, Ontario, and I knocked on the dean's door, and I was so proud. I'm like, Dean, I just want you to know, because you gave me that passing grade and you got me my degree, I was able to get a job. Look what they gave me. I showed him I have a laptop. Dude, I remember this shit. It was so funny. Like looking back at it now, he was like, oh, I'm so proud. I just wanted to show him that his effort wasn't wasted. Like the fact that he gave me a break, it wasn't wasted. Like I made something of myself. Somebody gave me a laptop to do my job. It wasn't my laptop. They just gave it to me so I can work.
It's a work laptop.
I know, but I was so proud of this work laptop that somebody actually, you have me thinking about, I haven't thought of this shit in years, but like, yeah, man, so look, so just fast forward. I mean, from there, I eventually started something called menupalace.com in late 1999 with my partner Mike.
That was like .com.
That was like the beginning of kind of the whole .com thing. So it was an online restaurant directory, and it took me 10 years, no, not 10 years, like 8 years to build that to a business doing like maybe $3 million a year in sales.
8 years?
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a good amount of time.
Well, considering I had zero business background, I was in my late 20s at the time when I started that company, like 27. And I started that company and it was just like grinding. It was like my first time I sold to an ad for $59 for the year to a pizza by the slice place. And then once I got him, I went to all of his neighbors and I said, this guy's advertising on my website. You should do this shit too. And so I did it. So we built that up and I was making decent money there, what I thought was decent money. And I thought that was it. And I thought I had crossed the finish line. And then in 2012, I had DealFind, which was a competitor to Groupon.
Because you would leverage the audience.
I had leveraged, there was no audience. There was a database with maybe 20,000 email addresses. There was nothing. But I had relationships with a lot of the restaurants. So the daily deal business, I saw what was going on with Groupon. And we started DealFind, which is a competitor to Groupon. That whole industry kind of caught fire. And in 1 year, we raised $32 million. And part of that was my exit because part of it was a secondary that went off the table. We raised $32 million and on a $100 million valuation on that business after 12 months.
That's wild.
So that was my first real like understanding of what business really was.
That was for somebody that built something for 8 years, and then the next business goes from 0 to $100 million valuation in 12 months. Yeah. That can, I mean, if you don't deploy that capital gracefully, like you can fuck up a lot.
Personally or
both?
Oh, I was a complete fuck up.
I have no doubt. I was going to say I have no doubt, but I was going to say like just like the velocity and the speed that business moved, that would screw up most people.
Well, I had more money than I had ever even fathomed.
I realized that
in my life.
That's it sounds great.
Oh, I bought a Rolls Royce. I bought a convertible Rolls Royce.
Sounds great when you hear the story, but when you're living it,
I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah,
I made a lot of mistakes, and yeah, I mean, you learn your lessons.
It's a lot of money real quick.
It is. Look, the thing is
how did you get 32 million? Like just because you were in a hot category?
Same way I sold the stuffed animals, bro. Like I don't know, like they just like the VCs came.
Huge raise for a first year one company.
That was like
and back in
there was no raise before that. That was 32 million back in 2012. Yeah. So that was. Yeah, the whole space was on fire, and we had probably 5 or 6 different VCs competing to make this investment. And I even dictated, like, it's funny because it's not funny to the guy who's now my buddy, who was my competitor at the time. He was so bullish, he didn't take any secondary. Like a large piece of that 32 million went to me. And yeah, I thank God I had the.
So you took money off the table in the first year.
Yeah.
You know who does this? Who did this? Anne. From Solidcore. She took money off the table every single round. And I think the more entrepreneurs should.
I think they should too. But I mean, that's kind of a young entrepreneur's mistake because, so my competitor at the time, he didn't. And so he had a competing company also in Toronto and he didn't take it. And the whole thing ended up kind of imploding on itself and the investors lost their money, unfortunately. But yeah, that's just the way it is. And so, yeah, I negotiated that deal for myself and my partner. So yeah, I was pretty happy with that deal. But yeah, and then after that, it was a series of different things. I had
That's a stressful like implosion.
It was a very stressful implosion. Yeah, nobody asked me about that actually, but yeah, that was really stressful because a year after that, we left the company. And yeah, it was like we had 400 employees. So we had 400 employees and it was as fast as it was going up, it started going down because there was just
How did it blow up? Like,
how did it go up or down?
No. How did it blow up? Like, how did it not work so quickly? Like, you have $32 million. Yeah, $400 is a significant. 400 employees is a significant burn. But I mean, you could have kept that going for a couple of years with 32 million.
There was complete consumer fatigue because the barrier to entry on that business and the daily deal space was so low that anybody got into it. Anybody and everybody got into it. I'm still friends with some of the competitors. Like we're still friends. Michelle Romanoff
from Clearco.
Yeah, she was one of our competitors. That's how I met her. I met her back then. She had a company called Buytopia.ca. Mine was called Dealfind.com. Yeah, and now she's great. I talk to her every now and then. Yeah, it's like, that whole thing. There was just extreme consumer fatigue. Like what would happen is there was this one butcher. And we would do like $50 for like $200 worth of meat. And he would sell, like in one day we sold $1 million, right? And then he got his portion of that $1 million, and then he just fucked off. So when that starts happening, and it's like for us, we're trying to control it, and we were trying to put in systems like checks and balances to control this kind of fraudulent behavior on the part of our kind of merchant partners. But it was just like, it was such wildfire, it was impossible to do. And then
Groupon's stay around.
Groupon's still around, but they are like a shell of what they were.
Yeah.
They were valued.
I don't use them.
They were offered billions by, I think it was Google, and they turned it down. They turned it down. Now they're like, they're not nothing.
They're not billions.
Right. But it was just like the concept of buying a credit in a restaurant for $20, for $10. People went nuts for it. People went nuts for it to the point where the first day that I ran my first daily deal, it was one of the restaurant owners that was my client, the Menu Palace, that I knew, and we ran it. And in one day, we did like 10,000 in revenue, which was very meaningful. I was like, whoa, that's like in one day, boom, and like easy, 10, maybe higher, maybe 20,000. And so then while that deal was running, I was trying to manage the tech, and then I was running to the car wash to talk to the car wash guy to say, hey, listen, do a car wash. That's $50. Do it for $20. And the reason why we were successful is because of my incremental little deal making, right? Whereas my competitor would go in and do like, $25 for a $50 credit. And I would say, do 20 for 50. Right. And so then we would run similar deals, and I was always like a little bit better because it was always me at the end going to the merchant, doing that final little push at the end. Yeah. It was very stressful.
Quite the roller coaster, because I'm sure that you raised $32 million. Obviously, VCs have expectations, and I'm sure that was stressful when that whole thing imploded.
It was stressful,
but it was like they were experienced VC.
Yeah, so these are guys with billions. That 32 million is a rounding error for them.
Yeah,
but I can tell you,
still, even if it is, as the entrepreneur, it doesn't matter, because that's more money than you've ever dealt with in your life, and it's still like, it fucks with you.
That to me, you may as well have called it a bajillion. Like, it was just an endless amount of money for me back then. Like, the fact that somebody trusted me with 32 million, I gotta say it. Like, I gotta tell you, like, to me, it just hurt me that I lost their money. And it was funny because I was talking to because when that deal happened, I then started gaining access to people who had much bigger entrepreneurs, right? Yeah. And when I did that, and when I told them like, oh, like I feel so bad about this, they're like, what do you feel bad about? I'm like, well, I feel bad. Like I lost their money. Like I'm sure like some of them have like families and this and that. And he's like, Gary, dude, like that month they deployed another $500 million, and on the 10 other deals failed, and one deal went public and made them back all their money, and like another $2 billion. Don't worry about it. You're good.
But that's also why I think that like entrepreneurs should raise from people that are used to investing.
I agree. Look, that to me, yeah, I would never do a friends. And by the way, I never took money before that day, and I never took money after that day. I've never raised money from anyone. Never. The most I did, and this was like a few years ago, one of my buddies, he said, you should get a line of credit at the bank. I'm like, I don't want it. And so finally I broke down and I got a line of credit that I don't use, but I have a line of credit. So it's that, that I have to say. And so let me tell you something really quick about my wife. And I don't think I've told this story publicly before. I said to my wife, when I met her, it was when I made that first deal for that 32 million, and I took my piece of that. And after that, and we got together at that time. And so I was under the assumption that there's another 50 to 100 coming, because I still owned a massive piece of the company.
You raised it at $100 million valuation. Yeah.
I do the calculation, pre-money, post-money, right? I still owned a lot of the company. And the way that the VCs were telling me, like I was this whiz kid, we're going to sell it, I'm going to make hundreds of millions. They're like, we already know where you're going to invest it. You're going to put it back in our fund. We're going to quadruple that money. I was like living in this dream, and everybody was pumping me up. And I was like the toast of the town for a little bit. I'd walk into a restaurant. I have like 10 money managers coming to me, trying to get. So I had this like inflated, sense of like my own accomplishments. And I'm really happy I lived through that, because like I feel it's really grounded me now. But I said something to Valeria, and I don't even know if I should say this, but it's kind of too late now. I said to Valeria, because it was under the premise that there's all this more money coming. And I said to her, between us, like I sat down with her, I'm like, you know what? That other money's not coming. So yeah, we did well. Like I did well, and I have this money. This was before we got married. It's before the wedding. I said, but I still have to work. So it's not going to be enough for the rest of our lives. Not for the way that I want to live. It's not going to be enough, meaning it's not going to be the easy ride that I thought it would be from here on in. I was 38 years old at the time. She was 20, right? And I said, if you want to back out of this wedding, because I don't want you to feel like that I came to you and like I proposed to you under the premise that it's going to be this other scenario. If you want out, I will be like, I understand, and I'll never tell a soul that that was the case. And so your reputation will not be like affected at all. She looked at me. She goes, you're so stupid. She goes, I don't care. I don't care about the money. Never say that dumb shit to me again. And that's it. And that conversation never happened again. And that was it. So to me, Valeria's like, she's the one. Like, she's real, bro. Like, I can't even describe to you. You know, I have a picture. I have a photo.
That's so funny.
I have a photo when I came to her. And like the first time I told her that it's not happening, we're not getting that money. And she hugged me. And somebody happened to take a picture. So there's a picture of her. It's like my back, and I'm hugging her, and you can see her long hair and everything. And it's that moment that I told her. And I have that picture somewhere. So yeah, so to me, like that just tells you who Valeria is. So all of her success and everything, it's very well deserved.
I think that like that's, you know, we're talking about like your entrepreneurship story, but I think that the most important thing that most people the X factor in a lot of people's success is who they spend their life with.
It's the most important decision you're going to make, period, hands down. There's nothing more important, not who your business partner will be, not what business you go into, not where you live, not your neighborhood, not anything. It's who you marry. It's totally who you marry, bar none, bro. But it makes or breaks people. Makes or breaks them.
Were you not stressed out when you started working with Valeria that it was going to put stress?
No.
Not even a doubt, like at all.
That it would be stressful?
Yeah, on your marriage, on your relationship.
So what? You know what I mean? Like, so what? Yeah, it'll be stressful. Having kids is stressful. Everything is stressful.
Yeah,
Life is
but
stressful.
now you're putting everything into one, like all these days go into one basket.
I'll bet on us every day of the week. I'll bet on us every single time. I'll bet that working with my wife, the person who I love the most in this world, I'll always be more successful working with her, partnering with her, teaming up with her than any other scenario. I will always trust that before anything else, because think about it. I got together with her under the premise that I'm going to share a life with her. I'm going to build a life with her. I'm going to make other people with her. I'm going to have kids. So to me, the business is like, it's nothing compared to the other stuff that we do together. You don't have kids yet. You're not, right. You don't have kids yet.
I know.
But you will. And you're going to understand. You're going to understand that once you have children with somebody, that everything else, it's like, it's easy, man. It's easy, because as much as Valeria's career is important and our business is important and all the kind of stuff that we do as a result of Valeria's notoriety is important, all of it is nothing compared to like our children. So if we can correctly raise our children together, prioritize our children together, this shit is easy. The business is easy because it's so much less important. You see what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying.
It takes a certain type of beast, though. It takes a certain type of person, because I can tell you, like,
well, you know why I asked, because not only, like, I mean, if something doesn't work, there's stress, and you can't escape that work stress when it's literally in the person you share a home with. But also, now Valeria is like the brand, and before that, you were building everything, and it was your company, and it was your thing.
But I played ahead in building Valeria's brand too.
I know you did.
But notice how I say I played a hand in it, because the last thing I would want is anybody to think that it was me who created Valeria. Valeria was already fully formed. I would just happen to be kind of like, I happen to help her. I happen to be maybe the vessel to carry who she is. But she is, I'm telling you, she's brilliant. Like, it's, I like to be.
You see what I'm saying, right? Because like people like want to, some, like, at least for me, I've always wanted to do my own thing and build my own thing, but like Gina has her own company too. And we've gone back and forth. Like, should I spend more time working with her or should I build my own thing? And I don't know what the right answer is. You made a decision and I don't know what the right answer, like maybe I should spend less time dicking around on this show and more time spend more time building MTS. It's tough. It's a very tough.
The way that I look at it is I look at where's the biggest opportunity, right? Where's the biggest opportunity, right? And I just go after the biggest opportunity. And if for you the biggest opportunity is not whatever you're doing now and it's something to do with Gina, then I would just go and do whatever the biggest opportunity is. To me, it's not, I don't look at it like, is it with my wife, not with my wife? Where's the biggest opportunity? You go to the biggest opportunity. And if, you know what I mean? Like, and there's other opportunities opening up to us right now, really like interesting ones. But it all is stemming from Valeria. I recently put out a reel when I interviewed Valeria, and a lot of people don't know this, is that when I had a company, I had a media company. I was reaching like 200 million people a month through a viral news website that I had. It was in like a kind of a partnership with Facebook. And then Zuck got called to Capitol Hill and there was the whole Cambridge Analytica scandal. And we had 20% of Facebook was coming through my domain.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, that's a whole other story. And so Facebook called us up. We were working with one of their departments. We were living in Toronto. They were in New York. They called us. They go, guys, we need to talk. Come on over. So me and my partner at the time, we went to New York. They're like, we have to stop. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, 20% of our audience, 20% of Facebook goes through your fucking domain. We have to stop. You guys have to stop. I'm like, okay, we'll tone it down. Give us 5%. They're like, no. You have to turn it off. So unfortunately, that business went down. But the point I'm trying to make is that when that happened, I had income coming in off of that. And I had just put a deposit on, Valeria and I put a deposit on a brand new house. And even though from a net worth perspective, we were good, but we had money tied up here and there. And we got a mortgage on the house.
Oh yeah. It's also not fun when overnight, like, yeah, money is gone. That's never fun.
My legitimate salary. I took a salary, a normal salary, right? And that salary was, mortgages aren't given against your house. Your house is used as collateral. Mortgages are given on your income, right? And so that dried up in between when we put the deposit on and when we had to close. So now we're like, I don't know, 8 months away from close, and I have to come up with, and the bank's like, oh, you don't show income, you're not getting the mortgage. And Valeria literally saved our asses. Again, from a net worth perspective, we were fine, but we had to show income. And so Valeria's brand deals were coming in, and we were able to then take income as a result, like put it through the corporation and take a salary for both Valeria and I. Valeria saved the day. And so anybody who kind of thinks, oh, Valeria, Gary, because he was an entrepreneur before, he did all this, that's bullshit. Valeria took the initiative. Valeria puts in the work, so I just, when I talk so enthusiastically about Valeria, I feel that sometimes it could be misconstrued that I'm taking like credit, whereas I'm a partner, but it is Valeria. I just like, it's important.
I don't think that, I know you, so it's I'm a little bit biased, but I never got the vibe that you were ever taking credit. The question was really like, what was the reason that made you want to go all in on her and her brand when you could have easily just turned around and built something new yourself? Because you've done it.
She's the fucking best.
I love that.
She's the best. I don't know, because I couldn't, again, I go to where the opportunity was. And when I saw her initial traction and I saw the quality of her content and I saw that first check come in for 10 grand from a sponsor, right? When she had only tens of thousands of followers, and I looked at this and I'm just like, fuck, you're so talented. And I'm like, this is the biggest opportunity and we have to do this. And I asked her about it. I said, are you in? You don't have to. If you don't want to, you don't have to. Go back to being a housewife. I don't care. Like, I care, but do what you got to do. What do you want to do? She's like, I'm in. Let's do it. And then I went, and that's it. And we're doing it. And I said, you're going to be a household name. And I won't stop until you are. Like, we won't stop. And we're not stopping. We keep going, bro. Do you know how much I love what I do? I don't think you asked her. I fall in love with it. I love seeing her in the spotlight. I love seeing her accolades. I love when she gets like an article about her. I love it. I love it. I love it because I see what she's built more than just the money, more than just the fame. I see the person she's become as a result. From when she started, from when she was 26 to where she is now when she's at 34. If you don't understand, like, I think a lot of people, they don't necessarily have the benefit that I do or have the experience that I do of seeing someone as talented as my wife from when she started in doing something so meaningful to where she is now, witnessing that and being a part of it and helping her through it, it's the most rewarding experience I've ever had.
That's why you have a beautiful relationship, and that's why you have a beautiful family. And that's, I mean, like, this is like, I think most people.
Listen, we have our fucking challenges too.
Yeah, listen.
I don't want to be here sitting like,
But I think that most people just want their partner to be their best. I actually think that it causes more stress in a relationship when they don't feel like their partner's living up to their potential.
You're right. It's funny because...
But that's a certain personality. So I think we're very much the same personality. Like, I love when G wins. Like, I absolutely love when she wins. Like, I'm trying, like, every time I get invited on stage, I'm like, I'm not speaking unless she's like sitting across from me. We'll do a panel together. I fucking love it. But that's the kind of personality that we are. And I think that's a very healthy way to...
You're absolutely right. Listen, partners need to support each other. I don't understand. And I want to talk about the men. The men, I think, are a little fucked up when they don't support their wives because of their own insecurities. And it's interesting because in Creator Method, like about maybe 2-3 months ago, we do these weekly calls where like the members all come on and I get on a call. Valeria comes from time to time. And then we have like, our other kind of our CEO and other members of our team mentoring them. And it gets personal in there. It's a group. It's like it's like a good container, And one of the women said, Gary, can you help me? Because you've been such a supportive role, like we've seen over the years through Valeria's content. You've been so supportive. How do I get my husband on board? I'm like, what do you mean? And she goes, well, my husband's not supportive of this. Like, this woman had some followers, whatever, and she was making a little bit of money. And she was like, I really want to blow up, but I don't have his support. I go, I want to see it, because it's on the video. I go, I want to see a show of hands. Who else feels that their husband, because it's all women in the, who else's husband or boyfriend is not supporting them in this endeavor? And I see like 70% of the screen goes up.
That's why, like, to me, that's crazy.
Crazy. So you know what I did? And I said, okay. I said, we're doing a call. I want you to invite all of your husbands on the next call. We're doing a separate call from our regular Friday calls. I want you to invite your husbands who aren't supporting you, and I want them on the screen with you, sitting with you. And on the next call, I want them all here, and I want to talk to them with you there as well. I want to have this conversation with them. And what I told the women before their husbands got on the call in that moment, I said, I want you to know that they probably, it's not because they don't want to. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they just don't know how to support you through this. They don't have the emotional intelligence, perhaps. They don't have the confidence of putting you in the spotlight. And so they're not bad guys. Please don't vilify your husbands, but get them on a call with me and let me discuss this with them. And we got on a call and I just broke it down. And I said to them, guys, here's the size of the opportunity. Here's an idea of how much revenue we're generating. Here's an idea of what like the size of the creator economy and the hundreds of billions of dollars. Here's an idea of all of these things. And these are the reasons why you should support your wife or girlfriend, whatever. But the main reason you should support this person is because that's your partner. Yeah. That's why you should support them. Right. And so, yeah, I'm just a big proponent.
No, but I mean, you gave them the benefit of the doubt. Why do you, after you had that call, why do you think the women felt they weren't supported?
Because I happen to be in online media. So I kind of understood the size of the opportunity. I just feel like I have more.
No. I'm not talking about the size of the opportunity. I'm talking about why a partner wouldn't support another partner in their career ambitions. I don't understand that, but obviously I'm in the minority if 70% said they weren't being supported.
It's mostly happens, men don't support women because I think men have this notion that the woman should. A lot of men have this notion that women, aren't that talented in business. Unfortunately, I think it's disgusting. A lot of them want their women to just stay at home and take care of the kids while they go off and do the manly thing. Yeah, I think a lot of it is that. And a lot of them are just like, a lot of them are challenged by it. A lot of them feel threatened by it.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah.
They don't have confidence.
They don't.
Yeah.
Valeria's on the front of everything.
Yeah.
I'm in the back. And the only reason I'm even doing anything right now, number one, because I just enjoy it. But I would be happy being like completely obscure and hidden and, and running shit. I don't need this. I don't have that. I don't feel threatened by it. I don't feel threatened by Valeria being the face of success. And I don't feel threatened by it. Again, the only reason I do it is because now we're developing Creator Method. And Creator Method is being built largely because we feel that there's like a massive need for it. But as a business, for us, we need to do something that's not all on Valeria. So like, Valeria comes and she's part of it, but it's mostly my time, and and we have now a separate staff for Creator Method.
It's just interesting to me. It's interesting how we're so similar, I think, in how we look at like supporting our partners. But
Why the hell wouldn't we? Like, what's the point in getting married?
That's what I don't fucking get. I don't fucking get it. Like, I don't care if G doesn't want to build a business.
Yeah.
But I want her to enjoy life and have some meaning. And if the meaning is kids, fine. If the meaning is go and do charitable nonprofit stuff, fine. The meaning is go build a business, fine. But like, I want you to enjoy your life. So and also, if people are so fucking myopic, there's seasons to people's lives too. Like, there are seasons to people's lives. So just because your wife took care of the kids for the past 20 years doesn't mean that's all she's ever going to be. Like, you can have other shit in her life too.
You're absolutely right. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, so I have this thing where sometimes I do like one-on-one calls. I do like case studies with our members. And so often I see women who have just had kids and who are trying to get back to doing something so they can feel sane, so they can feel like, or let's say their kids are like now at an age where they're about to go off to daycare. And so now they have time and they want to go back into the workforce, and they feel so like scared and underappreciated, trying to go back and rediscover who they are. And they're like scared to create content, and they're scared, and they're just, I don't know, like it's, and I have to tell them, say, you just spent the last few years having kids, raising kids. Yes, your husband was at work. Nothing much changed for him, meaning he continued to get up in the morning, go to work, make money, come home. Yeah, there's been big changes for him, but for you, you had to stop your life because you're the one who carried the children. You're the one who birthed the children. You're the one who has to stay home and feed the kids. And so why should you feel because a lot of them feel guilty that they haven't been contributing financially. It's this like weird psychological thing, they feel guilty because they haven't been contributing financially. And so they're trying to get back into it, and they don't have confidence when they're in front of the camera. And I see it in their content. And I'm like, I see you're not. And then she's like, and then the truth comes out, and they start telling me I feel like useless because I've been at home. Like, useless?
But they should be having that conversation with their husband.
And they probably are.
No, but
I don't think the husbands are the culprits here. I just think
no, I'm just wondering because they feel that. So that thought is coming from somewhere. And that imposter syndrome, whether or not, because you have a cohort of women because of that. I mean, they all come in through Valeria's audience, right? Most of them do.
Well, Creator Method now has its own audience, but it comes from Valeria.
But I mean, it's going to manifest in every creator in some way. This just happens to be a similar type of imposter syndrome. So people have to find a way. Like, this is why the person you're with at home is so important. The environment, the people, the friends that you keep, the people that, you feel comfortable being candid and talking about, like, your own psychological shit that's stopping you from putting out content, building a business, doing whatever the fuck you want. Like, I think it's very important to put that stuff out there. But if you can't do it in your own home, I think that's a huge issue. And I think that partners should check themselves if they don't feel.
I agree. It's interesting. Like, your podcast is all about success. It's all about building businesses. And in your content, you get into the case studies of the businesses. You get into like what happens. But this part is largely ignored.
I know it is.
Right. So just an idea for your content is, when your guests allow it, I'm very open because I just happen to be, that's just the way I am, and that our content is very open. But I believe that investigating the personal side of business success and what had to happen in order for the person to be mentally prepared and to be the mental strength, the stability they needed at home, the way that they looked at their situation at home and how they used that in order to succeed, like Anne from SolidCore, because she was on my podcast too. And she had the negative situation with her dad. And, and so she went on and she used that experience, that negative experience, much like I've used the negative experience of my early life to create something different. Like, the way that, like, I'll look at the way my father would try to be an entrepreneur, where he was too scared to do certain things. He was very risk averse. And so I, as a result, became very like risk friendly. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's burn the bridges. Let's do it. And so I used, I didn't even do it consciously. I just naturally kind of my reaction to the way he did things, and so I think that when you're talking to your guests, if I may make a suggestion, humbly, is that try to get into these stories.
Yeah,
like try to get into it, because try to find out, because like on my podcast when I interview, I also I interview successful people, and I get into it. There's this one guy, Michał Bursky. You know Michał?
No.
Michał Bursky sold his he made a shampoo for curly haired.
Oh no, you mentioned his. I know this story. Yeah.
He sold it for 150 million to Helen of Troy. This guy, he was born and grew up in communist Poland. Yeah. And he was telling me how he was hustling, collecting bottles, empty bottles, and like cashing them in for like pennies, and that's how he fed himself, because his family was so broke. And so getting into that story, into those hardships, and understanding what he had to do and following that path in his life to take him to his success, it's fucking wild, man. It's just wild to understand how the mind works to take you. And the other thing I want to say is that what I find with entrepreneurs, with successful people as a whole, is that, and I find it across the board, the more difficult the circumstances that they came from or had to endure, the more successful they are later. The more successful they are later. I know somebody who did time, real time, and one of the most successful guys I know. He got out of that and he just built something beautiful. Like, and he did really well. And you know, people who like Michał, who was like trading bottles for nickels to feed himself. Like,
so, you know, I don't want to beat this topic to death. There is like an art to bringing these stories out of people. And I think the whole goal of podcasting is to create an environment where people feel safe talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
But that is,
with you and I, we know each other.
Yeah.
Would I have opened up like this, with a stranger? Maybe not. I don't think so though.
But sometimes when you listen, if you open up yourself too as an interviewer and you speak about your own, like I didn't really speak about a lot of my own stories here, but if I didn't know you, and I have done this before. So some people, if you listen to some of the past interviews I had, some people go deep and some people talk about very personal things, but a lot of it is when I like for me to get that out of somebody, I have to open up and tell like some really personal stories too, so that they feel like it's a safe space. Yeah. That's a strategy.
That's the art, right? Yeah. Like, and that's the thing is like, you've done this so many times, like you're good, you're good at it.
But it's just being a conversationalist and genuinely caring. That's half of it too. Yeah. That's half of it. I think that.
Absolutely.
No, I enjoyed this.
This is a lot of fun. This was a long time coming. So you're going to come on my podcast and I'm going to go.
I think that we could actually do another one. Like if you want to come back and do like a part 2.
Seriously? I'm flattered, by the way. Thank you.
No, I'm serious.
I'm just curious. What do you feel we missed?
I think that what I wanted to pull out from you that we danced around but didn't really get into is lessons from growing Valeria's brand and like why her content did so well, because she did exceptionally well. And we talked about authenticity and whatnot, but I think like some more tactical stuff that worked really well for her.
Tactical stuff we can definitely get into. Yeah, a lot. Yeah, we can get into it. There is some tactical stuff. Yeah, so we can definitely get into that. But if I may make a suggestion, not to put you on the spot, but you should invite Valeria here too. Believe me, she's far more interesting than I am.
I'll have Valeria anytime. Okay. Seriously, anytime.
I'll let her know. I'm going to see her right now. Okay. I see her all the time.
People can find you on Instagram. All of your handles are going to be in the show notes. Is there anything else that you wanted to leave people with? Some last like words of wisdom?
Words of wisdom? I don't know, man. I'm still seeking for mine. Like, look, at the end of the day, it's never ending. I used to romanticize the finish line. To me, the finish line was like to have so much money that you can do nothing and live off the interest. And I know a lot of people who have achieved that, but and I used to romanticize that. But the more people I know who have achieved that, and to a certain degree, I guess I've achieved it too, but it's just, it wouldn't be the way I'd want to live. It wouldn't be enough, the interest off of my net worth.
Do you have a number?
It's not a number. It's a state of mind.
Because some people have numbers. Like I was talking so Vivian too, you had her. I think
Valeria had her. Yeah, Vivian's great.
She's like, her number is 20 million.
Yeah.
Because if you do the math.
Her fuck you number.
Yeah, her fuck you number is like 4 to 5% interest. So you're making $1 million. Yeah.
Yeah. So the problem with the number, especially the number that's required to be able to like live off of, let's say like a treasury bond at 5%.
Yeah.
if that was, the problem is that the top gets higher the more that you climb, which is something that Lil Wayne said in one of his records. But I think that's the case. I don't contemplate this. I don't contemplate it because it's irrelevant. It's nothing. It's fugazi, whatever. It's like, from the movie, from Donnie Brasco. It's meaningless. It's meaningless. At the end of the day, it's like the people that I know that have that number that they can live, like, they're not happy. I recently spoke with a buddy of mine who hangs out with like senior billionaires. There's billionaires and there's senior billionaires. And he told me, he's like, dude, they're all unhappy. They're all unhappy. Because now they're at a point that's like they have to keep going and they don't even want to. They have to. It's political. It's this, it's that. I don't know. I measure my life differently now than I used to. I just measure it differently. The words of wisdom is like, I don't know, everything's so cliche right now. Just you gotta just keep going and enjoy yourself, man. I just prioritize different shit now. I prioritize my sauna and my cold plunge. My kids, my wife.
Your bike.
My bike is the best fucking thing, man. I told you I'm about to get a second one. Yeah. I know my wife's the one. Why she's awesome?
Why?
Because I said to her, I'm gonna go get a motorcycle. She's like, all right. You know why she said that? Because she knows she can either argue with me, and I was
gonna say she gave up. She gave up on arguing.
No, she didn't give up because she knows that she can either argue with me and I'll get the motorcycle, or she can just say okay and I'll get the motorcycle.
Listen, I think when it comes to motorcycles, all she wants is for you to stay alive. That's
clearly. She asked me try not to die.
Yeah.
So I'm doing my best. I got all the safety gear. I got all this kinds of.
You go to war with what you're wearing right now.
Dude, I got, the only thing I'm not wearing is my airbag vest because I'm only like 10-minute ride away. So I'm like, I won't wear it.
So when you fall
well, not now because I'm not wearing it. No, I don't wear it here. But yeah, when you fall, it's got a sensor and it blows up. It's great. It's great. I'm not going to invite you to get your motorcycle license.
I think Gina has to get over that.
I'm just scared of Gina. If I wasn't so fearful of Gina, because she I've seen her angry.
Same part of the world.
Oh, I know. I'm aware of who your girl is, bro. So I'm staying cool. I'm like, the last thing I want to do is have you say to her, hey, listen, I'm going to get my motorcycle license. As soon as you say that, you won't even have to mention my name. She's going to be at my door with.
She knows where influence came from.
Some kind of a blunt weapon.
Listen, everything else she's fine with. She's okay with getting a beautiful Magen David from David German. He's okay with cold plunge and sauna. She's okay with getting some nice guns and going shooting. She's okay with kids. She's okay with nice house. Like, she's okay with all that. The motorcycle is the one thing.
I don't blame her. But I'm older than you.
But as a couple friend, you are a net positive influence on us. Because in Miami, there's a lot of great people that are not good influences.
That's fair.
Yeah, so you're good.
Well, I'm a good influence because I rarely leave my house because I'm with our kid.
That is a good.
I'm in a sauna and a purple. And you're overdue, by the way. I just changed. I just set the temperature. I'm actually getting a second cold plunge.
Why?
For women and children.
What do you mean? This one kills the average woman and child?
No, because mine's at 40 degrees.
Yeah.
And that's just difficult. That's hard. It's hard for me.
When I did that cold plunge where I did the selfie video at your house.
Yeah. Then when I put the ice in there?
Yeah. And then I looked up the temperature. That is far below what a cold plunge is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I know. I didn't realize it was so cold.
Why would you do it if you're not being extreme about it?
I don't know. I don't know the science of cold plunge. I don't know.
But who cares about the science? It's more than the science. The health benefits, I think, if it's colder than like 50 degrees, there's no additional health benefit.
Yeah, but if it's a degree difference between you being able to skate on it and dive in, you have to wonder if it's like a little bit too cold.
But what's too cold? That's just that's in your mind. It's not real.
Passed out.
I know. This is great. But what's the point in doing something if you don't go hard? You know what I agree? What's the point? These little sissy cold plunges that, like, with all respect, like, I don't want to be that guy, but 50 degrees. That's why I said I'm going to get a cold plunge for women and children, because what happens is Valeria can't use the cold plunge because it's too cold and my kids won't get into it.
She's also like a tenth of your size.
Yeah, so what?
I mean, but like there's less distance to travel from the cold.
So she can stay in for shorter periods of time. That's her prerogative. But she doesn't want to do it, and I respect that. So we're getting a second cold plunge. Then I'm going to have it at like 50, 55 degrees. So my family and my friends, hopefully you won't be in the camp who use the women and kids cold plunge, and you'll use the man's cold plunge, and you and I can take turns in the man's cold plunge. But yeah, that's what it is.